Hello, survivors, and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 110 of the show, and in this edition, we're returning to Rockfort Island to reappraise Code Veronica following the announcement that Resident Evil Veronica launches in 2027. My name is Sai. I've been calling it Cody V for the last 2 weeks, and now I can't stop. And joining me on the panel this week, 15 years before First Aid Spray began, I stuck him in a tube and out popped the ultimate bioengineered podcast panelist. It's Kelsey, aka KDB.
This podcast has been delayed twice and I still haven't checked the news headlines, just so you know.
Nothing major happened, don't worry.
Okay, good.
2 gold Lugers, you say? No, every door in his home is locked with 2 cheese sandwiches. It's James, aka Moist Owlet.
Where?
And he shall now take his sniper rifle, aim, and miss. More! It's Fire Button Steve Valance.
Hi, everybody.
That's a really old school reference that Steve will appreciate.
Every episode, Resident Evil.
Yeah. Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on Discord, so join our server now to become part of our fantastic community that includes Resident Evil diehards and newbies. If you'd like, you can support the show via our merchandise store or over at patreon.com/FASprayPod for as little as $1 a month. All of this and all of our social media links can be found at our website, FASprayPod.com. Very small little bit of housekeeping because, as I say, there's no big news to get into, but if you have missed it, definitely make sure you go back and listen to the latest 2 episodes of A Moment of Relief, which are now available on the feeds. It is the 4D Executor ramble that Steve Sherwin and I did about the 20-minute Resi film from the year 2000. Weird old thing. And then, of course, we did have the Resident Evil Requiem update that brought the Leon Must Die Forever minigame. So, of course, we've covered that as well. So, if you missed those are there. But, yeah, let's roll on to some pretty major Resident Evil headlines.
So, the first story, Capcom revealed a little-known thing, Resident Evil Veronica at Summer Game Fest.
Feels so weird to be talking about this now because, as Kelsey said, we were meant to record this podcast several times in the past and things have gotten in the way. So we are sort of reacting to this a little bit late. But to be fair, I don't know how most of you are feeling about this one. So I'm very curious to hear what your responses were to the trailer and stuff like that before I obviously tell my side of the story. But Steve, how are you feeling about Resident Evil Veronica?
Fairly upbeat. Now, the reveal was like, when you get that your twinge of this looks like it's RE Engine. What's this? That parapluie? I'm pretty sure that's umbrella in French. Hang on a minute, and then an incredible violation of a tenancy agreement later, and then it's been kidnapped. There's no way they keep that in. Like, there's just so many oddities with that little French lady, charming as she is. I'm looking forward to it. I do feel like what we have seen looks vastly more on like early stuff, like not to be too like cart before the horse. There's a guard falling. It looks like he's wearing a proper Nazi uniform. And if you know your Code Veronica, like in development stuff, that was originally going to be a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, so I wonder how far they're going to go with it. And I'll hold off for now. But yeah, tentatively enjoyed what I saw, what little there was.
Yeah, I will say on that front. Oh, no, I'll hold it. I'll come back to that. But yeah, I do agree with you. It was more of a teaser trailer than a full-blown trailer. So it'll be interesting to see when we get our next proper look at it. But they've been kind of... Obviously, we're coming quite quickly off the back of Requiem. So it's been sort of relatively thick and fast for this. So every major like gaming event, we've had something to look at for Resident Evil, and potentially that keeps up now with Veronica already. Kels, what was your first reaction to seeing the remake of Code Veronica?
Yeah, you kind of said what I was going to say there. 'Cause it was such a teaser that we didn't see. I mean, we only really saw Claire. There was a bit of Hunk, I guess, but we didn't see any of Steve. We didn't see any of Chris. I mean, we saw glimpses of maybe Alfred, but it's just, I was extremely excited. I think, there's been rumours for a while that it's going to be remade. And instantly I thought Code Veronica because I was playing Code Veronica. I'd already started my playthrough before this got revealed. And France and Paris was just in my mind. And as soon as they established that it was in Paris, I was like, Code Veronica, here we go. This is it. And there was a lot of really recognizable stuff that was fresh in my mind from playing the game, but just, in general from Code Veronica. And I think they, even from this teaser, despite it not showing very much, because it had the music as well, right? And I think there was just a lot of them saying, look, this is going to be a lot of the Code Veronica that you want or are expecting. I think there's going to be changes, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it felt so surreal to see that Code Veronica remake is actually happening, because it's like, it's not a mainline game. Why would they remake it? But it is a mainline game, and they are remaking it. And yeah, so I'm very excited, very keen to see more. I have no reason to really, think that it's going to be anything other than pretty decent. We had some issues with Requiem, of course, but Capcom are very good at what they do. And yeah, I'm just excited that we're so quickly back on the train for a new game.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, considering the big gap that we had before. So yeah, very excited.
I went through a similar kind of thing when watching it, because there is something, we said this with Requiem as well, where there's something about the RE engine where you can just kind of tell right away. But then pretty early into the trailer, and you see the inside of this hotel or whatever, a lot of the background behind the old lady standing in the doorway just looked like Rhodes Hill. So I was really thrown, because I was like, okay, RE engine, Paris, no wait, this looks like Rhodes Hill Kesson. It was a lot to take in, but it is really interesting to be getting. We knew there were going to be more remakes, but now it feels like, and again, I'll get back into this when I sort of sum up at the end, we are getting into the era of games that probably need the remakes more. We've done the big classic obvious ones, 2 and 3 to some extent, and 4, and now we're digging into the less beloved on a mainstream scale. So it is quite exciting to be. I don't want to do the remakes, but if we have to, I'm kind of okay with doing stuff like this now. We've got the big boys behind us, so I'm kind of excited to see how they handle this. James, what's your feeling on Veronica at the moment?
As soon as I saw that character, the main character in the first person, stretch out their sleeve, and I saw the red sleeve, I was like, this is Code Veronica.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
As soon as I saw that red sleeve, I was not cottoning on to all the references that the old lady was saying, right? But when I saw that sleeve, and then like Steve said, there's definitely a style to the RE engine, or potentially this could be the next engine, REX or whatever it is.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, what we were... Like, I definitely think I'm alone in this, but at first I definitely could not recognize Claire when it showed me her face. Like when I seen her face, I could recognize, but then there are frames in that trailer where I did recognize the Claire from RE2. So I think it might have just been a lighting thing that was messing with my eyeballs. But yeah, the one thing I took from it is that just this trailer alone has given us an expansive idea on what we could be getting in the remake, because we're going to be in another place, because in the base game, we're in, we're in the military base and we're in Antarctica, whereas in the trailer, we're seeing Paris,
right.
So already we're getting way more than we did in the original game, other than it just being mentioned in notes or in a voice line, which is quite good. It doesn't mean we're going to play in Paris, but having we'll go into it today in the podcast, I think, but like having more of the creation of what led to what we see in Code Veronica and Veronica is important, because that the base game needed a lot of that. But yeah, we'll get into that later on.
That's what these remakes should be good for, is like padding out the spaces between the games and stuff like that, and just tying them in a little bit closer. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if we actually get to explore any of Paris, or if that is just kind of part of the opening, or if, as Steve has said, maybe it's just for the trailer and it's not actually in the game. Who knows? That little old lady with the worst French accent ever, by the way. It'd be interesting if she's in the game or not, but I would like her to show up as like an Easter egg or something, because she was very charming. Like a boulder ran to it. Like, what are you saying? What is this voice? It's so weird.
It gave me this is why I think maybe we would be playing, because it gave me the vibes like you see that the old man at the beginning of Village. You know, when you walk in.
I got Village vibes from it.
Yeah, it gave me that vibe, and it looked like gameplay. You know, to me as
all in
well.
engine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the chances are high.
I mean,
maybe
you mentioned Village, and I immediately think of there's stuff in those trailers that didn't happen.
You will indeed.
Well,
exactly.
didn't get to happen.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah. This is true. That's the thing. And we do have it confirmed that the game is in third person now. So the choice to put that opening portion of the reveal trailer in first person was very much a stylistic one. They have now said that it is a third person over the shoulder game. So what we see in the trailer as it is obviously could still appear in the game, because Remake 3 is a third person over the shoulder game, and it had a first person section right at the beginning, so you never know. But yeah, it will be, who knows? That's what I'm trying to say. Who knows? It's a long way off yet, potentially. We don't actually know, because they've just said 2027. It could be early next year. It could be late next year. It's kind of tough to say exactly where it is. What I do know is a few things. I've said this elsewhere, but this is the team that made Resident Evil 4 and previously Resident Evil 2. And when you do look at the amount of time between those games, it was about 4 years. So if they jumped onto the development of this immediately following the end of Resident Evil 4 Remake's production, then 2027 does time out. But yeah, obviously finding the month is a whole other thing as well, providing, of course, it doesn't get delayed, which doesn't really happen with Resident Evil. I felt like we're pretty secure with the 2027 window. So my side of the tale, I suppose I should probably tell this story a little bit. Kelsey will love this one, because he loves how much I brought up going to the Requiem launch event.
You've never told us anything about it.
I haven't told you anything about it. So I was in attendance for Summer Game Fest this year, luckily, happily, my first ever time going out to the show itself, and spent the weekend out there. So yeah, I was quite literally, you can see me in a crowd shot, I was like front and center watching this, and I think we all had a pretty good feeling, hence why we're doing a Code Veronica episode, that we were going to see this game at Summer Game Fest. I certainly didn't expect it to be the first trailer. So my first viewing of it, my head was spinning, like I didn't know what I was looking at. And on top of being surrounded by everyone in the it's quite a small theatre, but you know, it was really cool to be in that atmosphere. And I will say, what's really exciting is the excitement around it. As I said, this isn't 2, this isn't 4, this is Code Veronica, which obviously is quite a beloved cult classic, but it doesn't have the same mainstream appeal as some of the number titles. But there was a lot of whooping and hollering and excitement, and that's probably just to see more Resident Evil already. I think, as we said before, the series is in perhaps a better place than, well, certainly than it has been for decades, if not ever. So everyone was just excited to see some Resident Evil, and I thought the trailer was overall pretty good. And then, so I got to attend, and you listeners will have heard various parts of this from me and other people. If you've seen, we did some short form video on our socials, on YouTube Shorts. I went to a Q&A with the producer of Resident Evil Veronica, Producer H, again, the producer behind 2 and 4, closed door. I will say, I think I'm allowed to say this, they basically said when we signed up for this, it's a closed door presentation of Onimusha and one other unannounced game, because it was before Veronica got revealed. But they didn't say what it was going to be, so I had no idea that we were wandering into a Q&A. So everyone there, I think, was quite unprepared for a circumstance like that, and we only really got 15 minutes to ask questions. Of course, our audience won't be surprised to hear that 5 questions were asked, and I asked 20% of those 5 questions. My hand went straight up at the beginning and straight up at the end to try and get the last one as well. And it was a lot of what you'd expect, and you've probably read most of it online by now, but the political answers that you get early in game development, where they don't want to show any of their hand just yet, but mostly just what I've said about who's developing this, when it entered development. Some Q&As got more details on the perspective. We didn't really talk about that. I tried to ask a question about Alfred Ashford and if they're going to how they've taken sensitivity into account when it comes to talking about that character in the present day, and I didn't really get an answer to that either. It was a cool experience, but they're being very coy about Veronica right now, aren't they? As they probably should be, because one of the best things about Requiem's marketing for a year and whatever it was, year and change, was that we saw barely any of the game, and hopefully we get very similar with Veronica as well. I'd like to continue that trajectory, please. I don't want to know too much. But yes, overall, it was a pretty good experience. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But as I say, they didn't really answer our questions very well.
So, not to be outdone, of course, by the reveal of Resident Evil Veronica. Resident Evil Survival Unit are bringing, current and up-to-date stuff. Jake, Piers and Sherry from Resident Evil 6 are coming to Resident Evil Survival Unit.
I very much doubt anyone has anything to say about this, but I do like putting these in here just because it's like a reminder that this game exists. Every now and then I see them posting something on Instagram. I don't want to be this person, and I don't comment on them because I don't want to be nasty, but they're like, what's your favourite thing about this in the game? And nobody comments on it because nobody's playing the damn game. Nobody has a favourite thing about that game. But it is cool to see Piers back. It is cool to see Jake back, obviously. And the funniest thing, I said this on social media, but the funniest thing about this is like, oh, look, we're bringing back the RE6 characters, except Helena, because she sucks and nobody likes her. It's just very funny that her absence, just like, whatever, I guess, Any thoughts on Survival Unit?
Have they updated the actual, the bit that people liked, the Resident Evil bit?
I saw a post. No, I think they've added a bit more to it, but I don't think beyond that. I saw a post the other day about, Rebecca growing herbs in her garden now, which I guess is another part of the base. But I don't think they've done a whole lot in terms of adding. They added some more content to the exploring part, and it actually soft locked me, and then I deleted the app. So I don't know.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
It's been downloaded over 5 million times apparently, so I'm not surprised it's still going. They're probably trying to tap into people, but yeah, I haven't even touched it, so I don't have much to say.
Did you know that over 50% of the users on the internet are bots? I just wanted to put that out there.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yep.
I just no correlation to Survival Unit.
It's still, I realise it doesn't matter and timelines are nonsense in a game like this. But it's adult Sherry. And it's meant to be during the Raccoon City outbreak.
Yeah.
Now, not to be a 5-year-old about things, but that just doesn't make sense. Right? Come on. You could. This is an excuse to actually have used Helena, not to be in defence of Helena Harper, the beigest character in the series history. But, I get why you don't have child Sherry, but also it
I
does
don't
not
know.
make sense.
I kind of wish they'd leaned more into the silly, we don't care about canon side of it. Them being the merchant there, and obviously Hypnos and the gulp worm and whatever. Just throw it all in and then just start throwing RE4 stuff. Go nuts with it, to be honest. That's the best aspect, I think we would all probably agree, is being able to see these classic BOWs together and stuff like that. So
yeah, I was not expecting to see mobile phone engine Thanatos, and for that it gets a fist bump.
Yeah,
Just
there
one.
is that. Yeah.
Well,
single finger fist bump.
Guys, I didn't see any snow. Did you? Canon. It's canon. There's no snow.
I wonder if they'll do cross promo for that. Anyway,
Who knows?
right.
Yeah.
I also want to I really love the idea of Rebecca having a little herb guard.
I thought that was actually kind of sweet, to be fair.
I'd love to see that in a future game.
It's so funny as well, because obviously they're like, oh, it's Raccoon City, but we're now months into the game and the town hasn't exploded. So it's just kind of become Walking Dead when they all just sort of move into the prison and start farming and stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough.
So our last story, ladies and gentlemen, Resident Evil and Baby Metal, the collaboration is now available for pre-order.
Wanted to put something quirky at the end here. Didn't know that this was a thing until it dropped, but it's kind of a weird, fun, dopey crossover. If you're not aware of Baby Metal, by the way, they are a metal band that have been around about 10 years or so now, that combines heavy metal with idol singing in Japan. They're called Baby Metal because they started out really young. I think the lead singer was 13 or 14, and then the two younger girls were maybe even 10 or 9 or maybe something like that, but they've all grown up a bit now. But the merch kind of puts them as the Dimitrescu sisters with Lady D, which is obviously a very clever thing to lean into, even though Village is 5 years old, ever the popular character. It's also worth throwing in here because if you're not a member of the First Aid Spray server, anytime there's a Resident Evil like official merch drop, it gets posted so we can all laugh at it because it's all really bad. And this, I mean, I just want to get a take on what people thought of the Baby Metal merch. Is it better than the standard Resident Evil merch, or how are we feeling about it? Kelsey, you're laughing. I'll go with you first.
The bar's not exactly high, so yes, it is definitely better. I mean, it's fine. It looks good. I like the hoodie with the classic kind of metal logo. My son is a big fan of Baby Metal. We often listen to them in the car. So to see this crossover, it was like, look at this. It's the game that Daddy likes, and it's the band that you like in this crossover. So yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. It looks good. It's good to see. I can't really see too much detail in the images, but it looks fine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. James, any thoughts on Baby Metal X Resident Evil?
I want the hoodie.
Yeah, the hoodie's cool.
I want the hoodie and that's it. Like everything else I can kind of leave. I do like Baby Metal. Like it's fun to listen to in very particular when I'm in a very particular mood. But yeah, the hoodie's the only thing I'd really be interested in. I have an aversion to chibi stuff as well.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, I don't like chibi things.
We've had chibis for about 6 years, James.
Yeah. No, I mean, we haven't got it on merch though. Like it's not something I don't.
That's true.
Right,
yeah.
Like it's I wouldn't want to wear the t-shirt with the chibi on it, for instance. Like it's just me. It's just my. I'm not trying to push my
anti-chibi agenda.
I am anti-chibi, and these are the policies I'm going to be living by.
I was going to say that's the one other one that I actually kind of like. Although when you look at the preview image on the Baby Metal website, you just know looking at this thing when it comes, it's going to look like that print is going to look so cheap and like flake off.
Yeah.
There's just something about that image. I'm like, that doesn't look good at all. Steve, how you feeling about the Baby Metal collab?
I'm craving chocolate all of a sudden. I really don't have much to say other than I appreciate that they aren't just character renders or faux character renders on top of a bland sepia-coloured background. That's already leagues above current era Capcom merch. But no, I like that they leaned into the anniversary designs. Like they look like they are from the same set, even though they aren't.
That's true.
They obviously not sat on their like nice throne with all the weird like regalia around them. But still, looks kind of neat. Probably won't buy any. No offense to Baby Metal. I realise you're big listeners to the podcast. We'll get you on sometime. But it's it's fine. It's not for me, but I appreciate it exists.
Fair. All right. With that out of the way, then let's move into our main subject for this podcast, which is, of course, our return to, as I said at the beginning, Resident Evil Cody V. And now, reading the file Alexander's Memo from Resident Evil Code Veronica in character as Alexander Ashford, Steve Quantic, who you can find on Instagram at Stephen Quantic.
My father, Edward, discovered the mother virus in cooperation with Lord Spencer, who was also a nobleman. They studied it for the purpose of military use. Eventually, their study took shape. They named a variation of the mother virus the T virus. To camouflage their research, they established Umbrella Chemical Incorporated. I majored in biogenetics and have been involved with a top-secret project supporting my father's research. However, my research went through a difficult phase, and my father died in the middle of the project. We are now at a major disadvantage against the other researchers, as there is great competition in the field of T-virus research. I have disgraced the honorable name of the Ashford family that our great ancestor Veronica established. If nothing is done, Umbrella will be taken over by Spencer. I must expedite the project to its fullest without being detected by Spencer. After much thought, I decided to establish a large-scale advanced research facility It will be located in the transport terminal that I created by using the abandoned mine in the Antarctic. Within the facility, I'll have a room built. It will be similar to the design of my mansion, a legacy of the late Trevor. I will be able to cherish my sweet memories there. For security purposes, this confidential project will be given a code name. It is the name of the beautiful ancestor of the Ashford family, Veronica, whom I wish to revive so badly. I am confident that the result of my research will be as glorious as her name, and that honor will be restored to the Ashford family once again.
So we have been doing a few retrospective look backs at games that we previously covered. Obviously, we just did one on our most recent episode with Village turning 5. But with Resident Evil Veronica being announced, we've kind of pushed the Code Veronica one forward a little bit, obviously, because it seemed like good SEO choice, I guess. But it has been nearly 6 years since we first covered Code Veronica back in October 2020. And yeah, we'll have some fresh opinions. We'll have some fresh people on the panel. And it'll be interesting to see what everyone thought of it in big 2026. For background on the game, in case you weren't aware, Resident Evil Code Veronica was actually first confirmed to the public in August of 1998. And then revealed 2 months later at a New Challenge conference. But the game was hit by development delays. It was originally intended to release alongside the American release of the Dreamcast in September of 1999, which was also the release of Resident Evil 3. But the game was pushed back until February 2000, which some will say, and I don't know if this is fact or not, I can never remember, that is why Resident Evil Nemesis got the 3 plopped onto it, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Regardless, to make up for these delays, Resident Evil 2 was ported to Dreamcast, and in the Japanese version, which is Biohazard 2 Value Plus, there is a demo of Code Veronica. The game released to overall pretty high praise. In fact, very high praise, I would say. Computer and Video Games gave it a full 5 out of 5. Edge gave it 8 out of 10. EGM, 9.5 out of 10. So on a high 9, like 9s out of 10 and 90s out of 100s. Famitsu's overall score was 35 out of 40, which is very strong. And then, of course, the game was re-released later down the line as Code Veronica X, or Code Veronica Kansenban in Japan, which was largely devised as a way to incentivize people picking it up for the second time on the PlayStation 2. And, of course, moving the game over to the PS2 just gave them a bigger player base to get the game in front of, because the Dreamcast was not doing very well. Code Veronica X adds 10 minutes of new cinematics, graphical updates and changes like Steve's hairstyle, quite famously, and pre-orders of the game came with the now famous and beloved Wesker's Report DVD, which was a summation of the story up to that point. The game has obviously been ported numerous times since then as well, always as Code Veronica X rather than Code Veronica. With the PlayStation 2 version getting an 84 or an 8.4 on Metacritic, the GameCube version then sinking down to 62 or an 8.3, and the Xbox 360 HD re-release 67 or 8.1. So over time and over re-releases, thoughts and feelings about the game do seem to have generally slid a bit. Despite what Capcom might tell you, and might have told me directly at Summer Game Fest about the choice to remake Code Veronica is to make it more readily available. It's still quite available, being released on PlayStation 4 in 2017, which also means it's available for the PS5, and then Xbox One in 2019, which means it's available for the Xbox Series. It is, however, I think the only mainline Resident Evil game not on Steam, or it's one of the very few that are not on Steam. So, to ask everyone their first experience with Code Veronica, Kelsey, you weren't on the original podcast, so I suppose you might have. We were kind of all talked about this before, but do you remember your first exposure to Code Veronica?
Yeah, it was Code Veronica X on the PS2, which I had and loved and played dearly many, many times. And I was the time, my friends and I were all big fans of Resident Evil up to that point, but then they had all started to kind of fall away, whereas I hung on, and I would spend a lot of time trying to convince people to play it, but wasn't really successful. So I felt like I was sort of out on my own with it a bit. But I can remember, being very excited and feeling at the time, I was like, this is the continuation of my favorite game of all time, which was Resident Evil 2. And it felt, really cool to play story-wise and gameplay-wise. And I was a big fan of it at the time, playing it on PS2, and I played it many times. And then, and I've just kind of dipped in and out with it over the years since then. It was not on the Dreamcast. I understand there's a few differences, like you mentioned, but I played it back in the day on all PS2.
Well, as I say, some of us gave our first experience stories way back in the 2020 episode, so I don't think we need to repeat that. Some of us have gone back and listened to that original episode, some of us haven't, so there might be some repeating here. Obviously, feel free to point it out, but I have been told that we were overall pretty positive with some caveats here and there, so it'll be interesting to see where we land at this point. I think the best place to start probably is the gameplay of Code Veronica. There's some meatier stuff elsewhere, but this is Resident Evil as we knew it at the time. Obviously, the series was only 4 years old, so the tank controls and fixed cameras were not quote unquote new, but they weren't quite as old hat yet. Obviously, there are some changes as well with the gameplay. We've got, and this is graphics adjacent as well, but there is gameplay impact by taking away those the pre-rendered backgrounds and instead putting them in 3D environments. We have, dual wielding, fully automatic weapons and stuff like that, and bits and pieces. So there are touches of new gameplay elements in here as well. Steve, how do you feel about the way that Code Veronica plays? I think maybe we start with a good. If you've separated them up, I have, but it's up to you.
Yeah. Generally speaking, there is 2 or 3 good things I have to say. For one, it's a great thing they brought back RE1's item inspection system. It allows the players to have a few more intricate puzzles. For example, checking an earthenware vase for a little gemstone bug thing. Always neat. I'm glad that the modern games obviously pretty much have that feature baked in the standard. But you remember, coming off the back of 2 and 3, it was like, where the hell's this really cool thing from RE1 gone? And that's like, and another thing I want to shout out especially is that it's like, side items, like for example the lighter, you actually get to use for a diegetical purpose. Other than just like, I use it to light the thing. You can just use it as a light source and it repels bats, which I find kind of neat. So the negatives. The negatives then, there are a few. One, it strangely feels mechanically inferior overall to play this game than the previous 2, like 2 and 3. 3 obviously has the benefit of got the fancy dodging and generally exploding barrels and sequences that allow Jill to do various funky things. This is just a bit more stodgy. Like everything feels a little slower. The environments, obviously, we're going to probably get more into that later, but obviously the trade-off of the pre-rendered environments, you have these environments that all look very in comparison and decent parity to the character and stuff doesn't stand out as well unless they make it luminously bright, like the files you find. It kind of ruins the mood for me. It feels a bit strange. But my main gripe, besides soft locks and various first time players will get screwed over by this. You will get in situations where you're like, how do I solve this now? Where I've swapped characters, I have given guns to Claire that I need for Alexia and vice versa. Boss fights with tyrants on planes seems to ring bells for a lot of people. Obviously after you've done the first time, you're probably a bit more prepared for. But they are incredibly cruel in comparison to even stuff like Resident Evil 0 or Resident Evil 2 had the decency to give Ada a weapon and Sherry can evade most attacks because of her height. But the other gripe is me being nitpicky, and guns don't feel really impactful enough, or the BOWs feel too strong against them a lot of the time, especially handguns, like your workhorse weapon for the game, unless you're using the M100Ps, which have a bit more impact to knock things down readily. Guns don't feel like they kick much ass, is what I'm saying. They kind of like, they foot the zombies just keep lunging forwards towards you and then get a chunk of health off you, or you shove them off. The knife is the most overpowered weapon in the series.
Yep.
But I feel like that's more of a bug than a feature because it's got more animation frames to cut through. Don't get me wrong, it is kick ass, no doubts. But everything else kind of lacks weight and impact compared to earlier versions, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, do you know what? I hadn't really thought about that, but I actually think you're right. And it's a shame as well because I found by the end of my recent playthrough, I was so unbelievably stocked up with weapons and ammo. There's like multiple fully automatic weapons in the game, which is cool in theory, but I barely used any of them. I was like holding on to them for something that never came. So, stacks of grenades, all the explosive, well, not all the, I used the explosive bowgun arrows, but obviously that is an option as well. There is a lot of option for combat in this game, but as you say, maybe it's unsatisfactory. But the thing that really stood out to me from my experience is the combat in this game is just generally quite limited, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There is, every time we get a different game, we should have different slices of the pie and stuff like that. And this one, to me, I kind of forgot how much of a focus there is in puzzling on Code Veronica. It really feels like it leads into that, maybe even deliberately, and I never really noticed it before. But yeah, that comes with some caveats as well, because sometimes it gets to be a slog because you're going, as famously, obviously going back and forth, and some of the navigation, even not between different locations, but some of the navigation just in one location can be weirdly not direct. For example, going up some stairs in the military center just to go down a lift to the floor that you're on because there's no other way to get there, for example. It's classic Resident Evil item puzzling stuff, but it's stretched out wider, which means it has a different flavour, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. I've got more on that, but I don't want to rabbit on. James, how do you feel about the gameplay of Code Veronica?
I did get to play this game this time. Yay. I didn't last time. I didn't play for it for very long, but I did play it. I mean, I say that I played it up to Chris, so I did play it for quite a bit. But yeah, I'll talk about the good things first. Actually, I'll talk about it was tough. It was tough to push through the general layout, like as Steve and yourself have said. But I'll go into more of the why of that in visuals, I think.
Yeah, fair.
It is one of the better tank control games, and I say this after only playing one other tank controlled Resident Evil game. Well, I've technically played 2 of RE4, but yeah, like Remake I played. The dual gun system was neat for as long as it lasted, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was rewarding enough. But yeah, like I had to move past that crutch of the tank controls. Like as a new person into Resident Evil, like I, in general, I am, I came into Resident Evil really with a more modern gameplay style. When you go back to tank controls, it really feels like a step back.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not aged very well, but this isn't a problem with Code Veronica. This is just a problem with all tank controls for me personally. Yeah, and also you brought both of you brought up kind of, I would have liked more dynamic puzzle solving in this game. Like I'm pretty sure most of them are pretty linear. Like there's only one way to solve them.
Yes, absolutely.
And I would have liked like several, maybe 2 or 3 more ways to deal with an actual puzzle, because I had to use a guide, like to push through this game, or to push through as many as I could anyway. But yeah, in regard to, I realize I topped that with the negatives, but like in regards to the positives though, I grew to really love the subtle fixed camera change, like the camera angles in this game. Like you had this static position in the original 3 games, but in this game you had a static position, but it followed you around.
Yeah,
and it maybe there was a point in it where Claire is going through the palace courtyard where I suddenly thought, oh, this feels like Alfred is just watching me.
Yes,
because it just pans to the left and to the right, right, the way a camera would, and it just struck me at that point. Oh, actually, I quite like this, so that would be really neat to see in the future. But I can go more into that later on. And yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with the backtracking in this game, more hate than love. Because like on the one hand, that's what Resident Evil is, right? You know, it's finding these barriers to overcome and returning to overcome them. But yeah, again, it's just repeating what you've said as well. Like the large areas and the general sameness of the base and Antarctica in particular, they felt like they proliferated the problem that it had already. You know, yeah, too much of something is not good. And it had, you know, and it had a lot of many things that a lot of people would, in gameplay specifically, that a lot of people would say, oh, this is just Resident Evil, but definitely too much of a good thing is bad.
It's an interesting thing what you say about the puzzles there, because I kind of get what you're saying. Like, it would be cool if they had experimented with multiple puzzle solutions. What I do like about Code Veronica, though, is that there are puzzles that reuse key items. Like, multiple key items get two uses throughout the story, and the way that they interact with one another and the environment and stuff, like the eagle plate becoming the halberd head that you use to open another door, like you snap it off, and then later on as well you use it again to get the paperweight towards the end of the game, which is really cool. The proofs being used to open up the airport, and then when you play Come Back Later as Chris, you take them out and use them to open another secret door. You can even argue the tiger eyes, I suppose, as well. They get used to be removed to find items, and then again you take them to where previously you were handling like the red and blue ants, I think they are, but now you're just kind of like putting the thorax in by putting the coloured gem in. Stuff like that I thought was really cool, and that's what I mean about like how it does have a focus on puzzles. But for the most part, you're right, it is Resident Evil puzzles as we've known them up to this point. And that's one of the things I do like about this, is this feels like classic Resident Evil on a system outside of the PlayStation 1. And I wish we got more of some stuff like that, because it's kind of standalone in that sense. I mean, I guess, 1, 2, and 3 are obviously the trilogy. And I guess you can argue that this is part of a trilogy alongside 0 and Remake as being like these later day tank-controlled Resident Evils. But it does feel alone by being on the Dreamcast and PlayStation 2 and with the 3D environments compared to Remake and 0 being GameCube games with, the classic style backgrounds, pre-rendered backgrounds. Either way, obviously, as you talked about the control scheme and stuff, everything changes 5 years after this game, because Resident Evil 4 obviously rocks along, and then Resident Evil is nothing like this really ever again. And we just kind of get allusions to the feelings from this. I'll do the rest of my positives as well while I'm here, because it's really only one thing I just wanted to specifically shout out. But talking about the puzzling stuff, really, really, I know everyone critiques the security box thing early in the game. Big fan of that whole loop, to be honest. The aha moment where you come back through the other end of the room and you can finally pick up the BOW gas rounds. An item that the game has shown you and you've walked through the security hall the first time and you haven't been able to take out with you. So that's good Resident Evil stuff. You can finally pick up that item. And it being ammo kind of belays how important it is versus teasing a key item. The BOW gas rounds are, we talked about the Tyrant fight briefly there. That's the get out of that boss fight easy code, that thing. So I always love coming back to that moment and being like, oh, I'm here, I can grab this stuff, I've made this loop. It's always good in every Resident Evil. Code Veronica, everything is on a bigger scale, so it takes longer to get to that point, but it's satisfying in its own way. Kelsey, how do you feel about the gameplay of Cody V? I
think this is Resident Evil for the sickos, to be honest. It's got it is Steve said something really poignant. So this is quintessential survival horror. It does everything that Resident Evil has been doing for years up to that point, or the 4 years or whatever it was, and just kind of cranks it up, and they really lean into the backtracking, the limited resources, the enemies, and then you are harmed by, Steve called it mechanically inferior, and there's one specific way I agree with this, in that this game, and I've said this a few times with some of the modern games, this game does not have a dodge, but I think in terms of the old tank control games, it needs one, because I think you're almost expected to, particularly on Code Veronica X, or the version that I played, it wants you to run round so many enemies in this game. Otherwise, you're going to get really caught short with your ammo and stuff. And I found that happening to me quite a lot. It's so difficult if you're not playing this like you're supposed to, or like an experienced player. Like, I would never encourage people to play this as an entry point to Resident Evil. You've got to get through some of the others to kind of know what to expect and how to play these games. And, you know, maybe there's a better way of saying it, but that's kind of how I felt. And it did kind of catch me off guard, like how difficult it felt, because I played this loads in the past and never really felt that way. And maybe we've just been spoilt by how much easier games are these days. But you can't really fault the gameplay for what it was doing, because it's not doing anything different than what the previous games are doing, and if it's just doing kind of more of it. And yes, I agree, the backtracking and the back and forth is egregious, because although I do like the setting and the locations for the most part, you do cycle around some of them like 5 or 6 times, and then you do them again as Chris later, and it's a bit like it's woven together really smartly, but it just does get a little bit annoying, I think. But anyway, so I think they've done really well with the gameplay. I can't dislike it because it was difficult. You know, it's like, it's always been like this. It's just the devs leaning into everything that they've done before. And then, the enemy placement, I think there's a couple of times where I'm fine with them throwing lots of enemies at you, but what I didn't like this time was you get like infinitely spawning moths, I think, unless there's a way to stop them from spawning. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like, can you please? And there's the central room in Antarctica. You can clear that out of like 4 zombies, and then 20 minutes later it's full up again. And you think, hang on, where did these guys come from? There's a few points with that. And then the hunters obviously can be a bit of a pain later, you know, trying to dodge past the little seeker thing. But it can be difficult to play, but that's not a negative. I maybe didn't have very much fun playing it this time, but I was trying to, you know, it might be mechanically inferior slightly with no dodge and a few less things you can do. There's no real ammo crafting beyond explosive bowgun ammos. That's not really crafting, is it? It's, so I don't dislike what it was doing. I just didn't have a great time, and I was kind of thinking, maybe they were having fun with the new engine and really just kind of cramming in as much as they could. And when the same kind of applies to the puzzles. There's a real mix. Some of them are literally, you know, bring item here and put it there, but then you get some brain teasers in there as well. And I think the environment, like you mentioned, Si, is very much a part of that. They use the environment as a part of some of those puzzles, maybe more than some of the other games have in the past. So it is really smart. Is it really fun to play though? Well, like I say, if you're a sicko, yes, it is, and that's fine. I think if you're doing a fresh playthrough like I was, where you don't really remember, like James said, you had to use a guide. I was consulting a guide all the time, and I was just like, how the hell did I do this in the past? Because this is not a game you can rush through if you haven't flexed your old school Resident Evil muscles, I think, recently, or it's not kind of part of you like it is for some of us. So there's sort of a mix of feelings in there. I really appreciate what they're doing with the gameplay, and there were moments where I did have fun, you know, the dual wielding, which we've mentioned. It's just a shame there's not more of it. We talk about the remake a bit later. I've got definitely some gameplay things to say, but one last thing is you know, tank controls. I'm good with tank controls, but I can see why someone would struggle. But I don't know if I'm imagining it. It feels like maybe like the action and cancel button were switched around from maybe what we're used to now. And I kept finding myself just pressing the wrong button, navigating the menus and the inventory. So that really wound me up. But that aside, that clunkiness aside, it plays like Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, which I absolutely love. I don't know if it's maybe sluggish, like Steve said, it was a little bit sluggish. It's just really flipping hard to play if you're not really up for it. So there's definitely a mix, and we've been spoiled in recent years. But I did really, really appreciate it. Before I went into this replay, I was like, I love Code Veronica. Like, I played it so many times. I really enjoyed it. I came out of it this time thinking I didn't really enjoy playing it. I enjoyed other aspects about it this time, aside from the actual gameplay. But yeah, they cram a lot in. Some of it works perfectly fine. Quintessential Resident Evil. You got to be a bit of a hard nut to play it.
I do. Oh, go on, Steve.
I was like, Kel's mentioning like various things about RE3's dodge, and I'm like, there's obviously it's well past time; it would never happen now. But if someone were to find a way to hack in, ad hoc in RE3's dodge, that would do a lot.
100%.
That would do a lot for my enjoyment of this game.
Yeah.
The ability to just evade around things.
Yeah, I desperately need that on the last little approach before you go in the private residence where the Bandersnatchers come out. They get me every single time. So a dodge would be handy. As you said as well, I don't know if you kill those ones if they come back. I never try. I have it baked into my brain that running past enemies in general in classic Resident Evil is a good thing to do, but in Code Veronica, because I know that some rooms repopulate, so is it worth doing it? As it turns out, as I said, I had ammo for days, so I probably could have done it, but it's just one of those things that.
Which version did you play? I
was going to say I played the GameCube version actually this time.
Now, did I misread this? But Code Veronica X, and I think the version that's on 360 or that I was playing on the modern Xbox, that is a version where it's stuck on the harder difficulty and you can't change it. And I don't know if there's a standard difficulty on the GameCube one.
Interesting.
It's definitely some difficulty
I was always under the
changes.
impression CVX. I'm sure that CVX is generally considered like the original CV on Dreamcast is the hardest version.
But doesn't it have a difficulty select?
No.
Something I read.
That I'm aware of.
It just felt flipping hard. That's all I know.
It is.
Yeah.
I've had Code Veronica experiences where, and this one was pretty tight, where I didn't have a lot of healing items at the end. I think I took 3 into the final fight. It wound up needing them in the end because again I was adequately over prepared with weapons. But there have been experiences that have ended in pain, and as Steve has mentioned, like I haven't really talked about my negatives here, but the game's length and padding are definitely made worse by those few moments of, if you don't know what's about to happen, then F you, I guess.
Yeah.
The tyrant fight, the Steve mutation, the crushing puzzle towards the end of the game, it's brutal, some of the stuff where it's just like, oh, well, you're back to whenever you last saved because you didn't know this was about to happen. And in some of those cases, your last save might have screwed you royally because you don't have access to an item box. Or, as Steve has said, Chris might have something that you need and stuff like that, that's just, I don't know, it just seems like dumb oversight that should have been properly figured out. It's like artificial difficulty, isn't it?
Like an easy solution for that would have literally been just put all items in a person who's not being a player's inventory in the item box.
Yep, absolutely.
Not to be petty, Capcom, for a game that you released 26 years ago. But come on, chop. Patch notes.
That's right. That's what the remake's for. They're just going to fix that and nothing else.
That's why I stopped, because the inventory with Chris. Like I was like, no, this is dumb. How was I supposed to know?
I had a moment where I almost panicked, and I think this entirely would be possible to do. So late in the game, this is going to get in the weeds here, but late into the game, when you use the halberd to get the paperweight, I think you can do that as either character, Chris or Claire, and I needed it as one character and thought I had picked. It turned out I hadn't actually gotten. I think I died and then reloaded and forgotten to go and do it. But I remember getting out of the cabinet and then not being able to find it and panicking. And then I went in there and was like, oh, I didn't get it. Yeah, I died and lost it. So it's fine. Stuff like that. It's stupid. And we've talked around the running back and forth in this game. And the multiple locations thing, it is made worse because sometimes you are literally running all the way from one location to another for one thing and then back to where you came from. But I think worst of all is it's so much easier to forget a step and kind of get lost on where to go next for your next key item. That happened to me. I also had to consult a guide once or twice. The second eagle plate, I completely walked past it. It's in that room with I think they're Bandersnatchers, maybe hunters in there, but you walk around like a desk and it's in the middle of the room and I completely just didn't see it. And then I was like, well, I could be anywhere in these 3 locations. And such a huge space to have to check everything for. And then I didn't even remember where it went because it's at the beginning of the game where it shows you it goes in where the guillotine is in the prison. But I hadn't been in that area of the game since the beginning. And the same thing happened to me towards the end as well, because I don't think, if I remember rightly, there's any examining item puzzles for ages. There's one right at the beginning with the case. Where you have to pop that open. And then there's one right towards the end where I picked up the flower pot thing from Alexander's room. I was like, I don't remember there being a flower pot. Where do I put the flower pot? And it's there just so that you look on the underside and get the item off the bottom. Yeah. But I completely forgot that was something the game was expecting me to do. Of course, it's in all these Resident Evil games, but I forget that it's there until I pick up the item that I know I have to examine, and I completely forgot that was a thing. Code Veronica, lots to like about it, I find, as kind of Kelsey has talked about it being a bit of a Resident Evil for the sickos. It's definitely missing some stuff that maybe would make it a bit more tactile and fun, but it's unfortunately let down by being a faff at times right until the end. The last section in particular as well is just a lot of running back and forth, grabbing all these different items and comboing items together and stuff like that. It never stops being about running from one room to the other and then back again, unfortunately, which is, and we'll talk about it a little bit more towards the end, but I think it's going to be certainly something they address in Veronica, I imagine. Any more thoughts on gameplay? Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I was like, see, I didn't mention the backtracking this time because I didn't want to backtrack on what I said in the last one. Another joke. But I just like the problem, like just to describe the opening puzzle in CV, you literally go all the way to this one, like, and pretty much a linear route of rooms with one side path to get the M100Ps. Then you go get a single, like, switch and a fire extinguisher. No, sorry, a switch to get a fire extinguisher. Then you got to go all the way back to get a single item, then to go all the way back again just to get out the starting area, which is like, that's 2 backtracks in the opening 10 minutes. Compare that with like Resident Evil 1, where you're in the mansion, you go into one little side room, meet a zombie, then you can like either loop around the mansion one way, if it's the original Resident Evil, or you can loop it around it 2 ways in the remake. Like that stuff is infuriating to me in terms of game design. Like, and it happens a lot in CVX. Like, everyone knows it's backtracking like central for CVX. But you have to go into one area to then double back to go to the other side of the building, or you go from the palace to the training facility, to the sub-pen, to the palace, to the training facility. Like, this is not good game design. This is just tedious walking to get into more combat. Capcom, yes. I know your game. I get it. You've only got so much space on these discs with these 3D models. But come on, give us a break. Give us a break, Gov, please. Please. I've walked to the prison 4 times. I don't need to go anywhere, please.
Yes, you do, Stephen. It's take this one item, please. And there's nothing, I think, crucially, there's nothing else to do on the way there other than avoid or kill enemies. At least with something like an RE1 and maybe even an RE2. You would sit in the save room and you go, I need to get here, but also it means I can go here on the way because I haven't been in this room yet, or I can go pop this in here, or I left an item here that I need to go get. But you do these same paths over and over again where you clear them of all the items and stuff like that. It's never a case of plotting out a so-called route. It is unfortunately just I need to do A and then B, which is B happens to be 6 miles away from A. So I guess I put my walking shoes on. And that, it feels obvious to talk about, oh man, the backtracking in Code Veronica sucks because we've been talking about that for 26 years. But you have to call out the biggest blemish in this game, and I think, it is that. Yeah. Artificial elongation, as you say. Let's talk about the visuals. As I kind of talked about at the beginning, this was one of the big changes for Code Veronica. For better or for worse, depending on how you look at it and how you think it might have aged. The replacement of pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D environments at the time was obviously very, very exciting and felt like Resident Evil moving forward at least a little bit incrementally. I'm curious to see what everyone thought in terms of the way that the game looks. Kelsey, you played the Xbox 360 HD re-release, which obviously comes with its own barrel of monkeys because it does have some nice lighting effects, but maybe also suffers from being dreary where there isn't too much lighting. How did you get on with it?
Yeah, I just think this is another area I'm quite mixed on. Thinking if I put myself back to the original days, on PS2, I thought, wow, this is, big step up. I think particularly with just character model. And I remember thinking Claire looks so good, compared to Resident Evil 2. And I don't think I really took into consideration too much about the pre-rendered backgrounds back then, but playing it again now and thinking about even this HD version, like some of it looks fine, but I just think there's no real denying that so much of the original environmental storytelling of the pre-rendered backgrounds is lost, and this was a point raised on the original episode that you folks covered, and not all of the style and character of Resident Evil is gone, but a lot of it is, and I just feel it does end up looking like so many other video games, which is not necessary. It doesn't necessarily look bad. It just, in places, it looks kind of dull. And this is in contrast to some of the variety, you know, and some of the locations themselves are decent. And, you know, there's highlights like in the palace, like the bedrooms and the merry-go-round, and basically kind of anything in that area is quite good. But then, and I don't really dislike the prison, but it's just, it doesn't have as much character as that. And then when I think of something like the Antarctica location, again, so much of it is a bit dull and dreary. And while the location itself, it's like, this is quite exciting, going to Antarctica, and there's very, you know, it's very Carpenter and Thing-esque, but it's just pretty lame with nothing of charm apart from maybe the little BOW lab with the spiders in, maybe. And it looks fine. It was a step up, but I think that it sacrificed a lot to make this jump to 3D. And it is a solid attempt with the new, if I think about the new tech that they had at the time, and then, you know, the HD version, it looks fine. But this is a real kind of middle ground and transitional period from the originals. And I think sort of between that and then something like RE7, which is, you know, the first use of the RE engine, because honestly, I think visuals wise, this has more in common with obviously like RE4, 5 and 6. And although they might have a little bit more going for them, sort of, I honestly don't think they are that much better than this. And I don't think Resident Evil's visuals got good again until RE7. Gameplay wise, I think it really, there's a couple of areas this game really lacks, and the visuals for me, it's fine. It's a nice shiny 3D Resident Evil, but I wonder if the style of those originals should have maybe just been kept for that pre-rendered setting, because some of it is just, you lose all of the, you know, broken windows with things hanging out of them and stuff that's happened, and wreckage and boarded up corridors, and now it's like, oh, there's just a load of giant crates everywhere, and it's like, okay. Some of the office spaces are kind of interesting. There's loads of CRTs in this, which look really cool. I like those. But yeah, visuals wise, it's fine. It's, you know, there's no technically anything wrong with it. I just think what I really love and want in Resident Evil that's playing like an original Resident Evil is missing from this in that aspect. So yeah, I like some of the design of the locations, as I mentioned, but in terms of looking at it, it's very blocky, very 3D and fine, but it's just missing a lot of the storytelling and style and charm that I liked before. And don't be too harsh on it, because it's fine. But yeah, it didn't blow me away.
It's interesting actually, because I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right. It isn't a million miles away from Resident Evil 4's graphical, not fidelity, quality like that, but they do have a very similar vibe in that sort of, I don't know, dreariness, I guess. That sounds really harsh, but obviously RE4 famously doesn't have a whole lot of colour in it. It's one of the quintessential brown and grey games. But Code Veronica, I guess, had it beat 5 years perhaps too early before it was called and hip to be brown and grey. Steve, how do you feel about the visuals of Code Veronica?
See, I played the HD 360 PS3 port as well for a run up to the podcast to refresh myself, and I actually found myself kind of like enjoying it quite a lot. Like I enjoyed that. Maybe I was just taking away the lighter. I had it out a lot just for lighting, because it makes the, like, you know, the blacks pop out on my big fancy 4G telly or whatever the frick it's called.
4G.
I don't know, but I'm old. All right, kids. You know, and I appreciated like stuff like that. It made the lighting pop out. Unfortunately, there's not much dynamic lighting in the game, but I imagine if it had more, it would have just helped it sell more. The environments, when they stay away from the bare concrete and the boring wood, and the training facility in itself, the training areas of the facility, one of the most boring Resident Evil notifications in my life. Like, there's that cool little sauna room, there's a broken gas tank room, I guess, and a smashed up lab. Fascinating. But you look at the prison, the little areas you do get in the prison, like that whole bunk area, so much stuff is going on in there. It looks so like, it looks like stuff has just gone down. Very interesting. Love it. Zombies everywhere. Great. We've got 6 bunk beds for how many population prison? Don't know. Cool.
Classic Resi, cool. Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. We've also got 1 toilet.
One
Good
toilet,
luck, guys. Yeah. We've got 3 showers though. Very peculiar operation. Anyway, it's already been mentioned in the live chat, but there's like some really cool stuff. The doctor's office is one of like the quintessential Resident Evil effed up locations in like the entire franchise. You go in, and this doctor has been mangling people, cutting them apart. Underneath there's a nice little like wine tasting. Not wine tasting. There's a table with like a torture rack, a wine glass, and Alfred's been watching this guy carve someone up.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly messed up. Beautiful. Love it. Go upstairs, doctor's eating somebody. Again, wonderful atmosphere, terrible tone. Takes an absolute pounding of bullets, the cheap... I'm not swearing. We're on the podcast. Point is, for every area like that, you get the sub-pen, which is bland grey, and despite one really bespoke camera angle from inside of a fish tank looking out, boring as all heck. Right, the lab in Antarctica. If it did not have the Carpenter, the John Carpenter adjacent music helping the tone of it, it's just blue concrete. It's kind of boring.
Yeah,
kind of boring is not what you want in your end game area. All right, and that's unfortunate. The palace and the little like after residence again. The RE Engine's going to swing it and smash it out of the park.
Yeah, for
in the
sure.
remake because that area is already fantastic. Like it's even got a bespoke off to the side staircase, which is rare apparently in the Resident Evil universe now. I don't know why.
The remake looks like it doesn't as well, which is a shame. It looks like they put another staircase in.
Again with sideways staircase erasure. But no, the point is that palace, as weird as it is, when it's like small, like room with its own variation of the Cradle to Grave puzzle with the lineage of the Ashfords, the Ashford's little office where the Lugans get in, and then the runway through. All of that stuff's great. It's just then you have to pull it all back and look at the central hub of the area. Environmentally, it's a single corridor with like a bit of path, a broken gate, and like burning barrels, and that is peak boring as. Words I can't say on the podcast.
James, how you feel about the visuals of Code Veronica?
Yeah, I'll come in it from 2 different perspectives, but like I think I'm gonna basically parrot what everybody else has said. But yeah, technically, this game looks great for the year 2000. Like it's on par with everything that came out, like Majora's Mask, Final Fantasy IX. Its cutscenes are the best we've had up to that point in Resident Evil as well. And thematically, it looked fantastic. The military base felt utilitarian, built for purpose.
Yeah.
The palace had like this Central to Eastern European vibe to it. But yeah, more could have been done to it, like what Village did, for instance. But I'll talk about more of that later. But yeah, then there's Antarctica, which is, it's cold, it's grey, and it highlighted the issue with all the other locations, like louder. Like, I was so lost throughout this game with only a few locations standing out. Like, I specifically there, I like the outer hallway leading up to Alfred's residence, the Castlevania.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah.
Like, kind of walkway was really dope. The palace lobby. And Steve just mentioned it, just reminded me, for some reason, that room with the random fish tank in it, like that, I don't know what, like those little touches of personality. There's also that room with the bats and the big statue, there are definitely rooms with personality, right? But they are few and far between, right? And it made kind of the traversal of this game much harder for me to pass because I couldn't. Like, you're telling me at the end of the game to go to the beginning of the game, everything looks the same. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing because everything looks very similar. I have to use these landmarks, which are so far and few between. But yeah, like, more could have been done. And you can make dull, neutral locations pop as well. And in recent years, Capcom have done that quite successfully, I feel like. And yeah, unfortunately, this game had way too many of them to count, and they just became this like amorphous blob of beige for me. It was just very neutral and boring, so I couldn't appreciate the game fully.
My notes are kind of last because I've kind of got a glass half full perspective on it, but I wanted to let you all go so that I can basically say that I agree with everything that you say. Really, a lot of you are. It is a bit, as I say, dreary. It's a bit forgettable at times compared to some of the other games when you think of iconic locations in the series. Code Veronica has more so rooms than entire areas, I think, and you guys have named a bunch of them. Some of the other ones I like, even though, and James, you just kind of said about sort of there being basic looking and kind of dark looking rooms in Resident Evil that are still iconic and have character to them. There's that one random room with the Iron Maiden in it where the guy comes out and stuff, you know. That's one, and stuff like that. The weird casino upstairs in the palace and so on and so forth. I do think for its positives that the detail loss in the background, I think, was meant to be elsewhere, i.e. the lighting and the character models. And I think it was a worthy experiment to lose that background detail but gain infinitely more expressive characters. If you look at Resident Evil 3, and I imagine these games had slightly different budgets, but all the same, Resident Evil 3 came out months before this, and we were still using, because it was a PlayStation 1 game, flat character models with no expressions on their faces and hands, you know, like shovels. Whereas Code Veronica suddenly, because of the jump to the next generation of consoles in the Dreamcast and being able to do full 3D character models, we have way more expressive faces. We have characters. Hold on to your desks, everyone. With fingers. Crazy, I know, which we didn't have before. But the trade-off is obviously depending on how you feel about it. Is it worthy? Is it not? Would there have been a better middle ground or something like that? I do love the character models in this game. They unfortunately do mean I think that the backgrounds are the price to pay for that. It does get too dark. Definitely, there are places where I was going up and down on the brightness meter. Definitely on my system, and I just talked about the Bandersnatchers outside the private residence, but there's a red herb there that I walked past like twice, maybe 3 times before I even realised it was there. Vital items that you could probably do with, and stuff like that happens all the time because it's a little bit dark. And many people say this is aged worse than Resident Evil 3, and I completely understand why. I had a much less negative experience this time around than I think I have in the past, but I do completely understand all the criticism. In terms of the other positive, it's been talked about a little bit, but the game does immediately put one of its new features like front and center. The first thing you do in the game is activate the lighter to show off the fact that, hey, we actually have like a lighting engine. It is a bit all over the place with it in terms of when you do and don't experience it. Game has like various parts where things are on fire, so you get a bit of it then. Sometimes you get it streaming in through the windows, which is nice. It's cool. Love that. And my favourite one is the ascent to the private residence, the Castlevania bit, where there's thunder and lightning. Nowhere else on the island, though. There's no like storm anywhere on the island. It's just that one stretch of road because they wanted spooky Dracula land, which is very funny. But you know, why not? I guess. Overall, I had a decent time with it visually. From the audio side of things, go on, Steve.
I was going to say, you know, I feel like we keep comparing it to Resident Evil 3, and I feel like that's probably unfair.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be saying more like Dino Crisis 1, maybe. Like, you know, because that was the first 3D like survival horror game, or at least I think.
Yeah, it's true. Especially at least Capcom's. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's got probably on par for grey corridors and odd rooms with
Dino
really good
Crisis is
environmental
boring.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, at least. It had Gale and Regina, the best Capcom character.
I'm talking about the
Capcom.
backgrounds, though, you know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Yes. Let's talk about audio, though, which I do think is a strong suit for Code Veronica. I had a wonderful time, and I always do with Code Veronica and the soundtrack. It's one of the GOATs for me for so many reasons, which is why I did now 5 years ago, now that's what I call survival horror episode on this, which is on our YouTube if you'd like to find it, where I really go in depth on 10 of my particular tracks. And Sherwin manages to get me to talk about how much I love Alfred Ashford as a character as well, which he will never let me live down. Some of my choices from that one as well. But yeah, there's just to sort of sum it up, I love the so many use of like recurring themes, both in the instrumentation, we have choir and stuff throughout the game, and obviously the music box, and then there's the leitmotifs as well. We have the nursery rhyme kind of thing for the Ashfords, and the sort of hero theme that we hear a few times, most notably when Chris makes his first appearance, but it then kind of... Actually, it starts at the beginning if you actually... You know, it's in that opening FMV, but I don't think it really... The penny dropped for me until Chris makes his appearance and you hear that same theme again. And then all that comes together in the final fight alongside what almost sounds like a reference to the Birkin theme in there as well, which is perfect for me from a lore perspective. Birkin being this guy that was really jealous of Alexia Ashford being this genius. So it kind of all nicely comes together. And, as has been said, Code Veronica kind of being the quote-unquote true sequel to Resident Evil 2. Some of the best music in the series, I think, and that is somewhat evidenced by the credits theme, which is one of the rare examples of Resident Evil that does the one where it just like plays a bunch of different tracks throughout the series. And I hadn't heard that version. I hadn't actually listened to the credits of Code Veronica in a very long time, and it's really cool how it hits the save theme, the Tyrant theme, the Code is Veronica theme from right at the end of the game where the self-destruct is about to go off. All of Alexia's themes, of course. We also have Suspended Dull in this, which is the piece of music from The Private Residence, which is one of the spookiest pieces of music in probably more than Resident Evil, probably survival horror in general. I have to just get it out there. Superb. Just a fantastic soundtrack. James, what do you make of the audio side of things from Code Veronica, the music, the sound effects, and of course, we can't not talk about the voice acting.
Yeah, I'll quickly go over the soundtrack. A moment of relief in the save room.
Oh, of course.
One of the most welcoming.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the nicer ones, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It really, like, when moment of relief comes on, it really feels like you're taking a breath. You know, which is very welcome in this game because you need to take quite a few of them as you're going through. There's also a track, I think it's called Palace of the Insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which stood out to me, like, the reason I love it is because it constantly like kind of ramps up this suspense, like it was leading to something, but it never reaches that peak. So you're being edged by this, like,
that's the best stuff.
Yeah. So you're being edged by this track, and like it's incredible. Yeah. Oh man, what to say about the voice acting? There is. You know, it's funny when you kind of look at it from a broader scope, because say if you were comparing Alfred, or Alfred, as he likes to call himself, to Steve, in terms of their performances and how campy they are, you know, they're quite similar. But then when you look at them mechanically, you know, it's like you can see a clear difference in terms of the charisma they give off.
Sure.
You know, like Alfred is just so likable in the worst way. And and it's not like I'll support him in his endeavors, but oh man, every time you hear him you just want to keep hearing him talk. And then like Alexia, same thing. Alfred, Steve just put in chat. Alfred's. That's hilarious. Built off the Halfords brand. No sponsors.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine? Get a free bike. But yeah, Alexia as well cannot be understated. That
I love her.
laugh as she's coming down the stairs. Oh. And you were saying that that was the voice actor's first appearance, like in doing a job. Was it?
I don't know. I don't know how I said that. I'll have to look that up.
Oh, who was it? It might not have been you. It might
She
be
was
someone else.
interviewed by Crimson Head, and I'm fairly certain she said that was like one of her first, if not her first, acting gigs.
Fantastic.
Or at least voice acting gigs. I will have to like direct people to go listen to it because it has been like a hot minute, but I'm fairly certain this was one of her first gigs.
Oh, yeah, it must have been Steve then. I was mistaken. But yeah, when you hear that, I would like to hear more. I would love to hear those voice actors come back, but just with better direction, which Capcom has been doing extremely well. And like characterization, Capcom has been doing extremely well recently, but we'll go more into that with characters. Overall, really liked the voice acting in this game. Maybe not Claire.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe not Steve, but I'll go into that more later on.
Okay.
Yeah. Who else I was going to mention someone? Oh yeah. Is it Juan? The
Rodrigo Juan
Rivard. Yeah.
Rodrigo. That's his name. Thank you.
Yeah. I really loved him, and he is going to be somebody that I'm going to fall in love with in the remake. I feel like
He is low-key my prediction for the character nobody sees getting the glow up that he deserves. Like I thought.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I really loved him as well. I also liked with him, and this is kind of going to bandy around three different categories, but I really loved with him that going back to him, and he has actual game mechanics attached to him, and you give him some things, he'll give you some things back. I like that part of him and his character as well. But yeah, negatives though. Gunplay, big doo-doo, not good. It doesn't feel good. Is it just me? Like, I don't feel the guns feel good. They don't sound good. They feel tinny. There's no character to them, which is really unusual for Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Because they do they always sound quite good in their games. But yeah, specifically though, the pistols, they all sound crap. Like, it was completely lost on me. I also, but before I end, I wanted to touch on this gameplay and then I forgot. You might have had all that ammo at the end of the game, but it took you 1/5 of your ammo just to take one zombie down. So it didn't matter how much you had. The zombies sometimes took more than it felt like took more than the bosses at times.
Yeah.
There was like this weird power scaling issue. But yeah, that's all I have to say about audio. Overall, like 90%, 5 stars. Yes.
Nice. Steve has put this in chat, but I was also just checking IMDb to fact check us. But yes, Layla Johnson, who played Alexia, she'd done like the odd episode of television. But not a lot beyond that. This is definitely one of her like earliest leading roles. I'd say get her back for the remake, personally. Karen Strassman, who played Alexia in Dark Side Chronicles, did a great job, but she went on to play Annette in Remake 2. So bring back the original Alexia. That's my opinion.
Yes,
but
please.
We'll get there when we get it. Steve, what do you make of the audio in Code Veronica?
So I'm not going to wax lyrical about the music. As a person who's probably going to bash CV a bit too much on this podcast to be considered a bit unfair, I will always say CV soundtrack is one of, if not the series best. Mm-hmm. Like, very strong. Very strong. Palace of the Insane, as we've already said. Yeah. Suspended Doll, Moment Relief, all bangers. I love the theme of Alexia too, just saying. For me, otherwise, bit of a mixed bag. Like, if the sound effect is new to Code Veronica and not a reused asset from RE2/3, it's generally pretty good, at least on the HD version I played. But if it's older and it's been ported across, for some reason it sounds muffled and muted. Like, generally speaking, I think that's why guns also feel like they're less impactful. Right. Because they sound less punchy. And the Magnum sounds weak as all heck. The shotgun sounds like it's going thump to thump thump. It's not. They're just that usual like sound and thrum of your weaponized hardware. It doesn't quite have that satisfying pulse, And the zombies are all like as opposed to the normally know, they're a bit vocally low. Low energy zombies. I get it. You're undead. You're a bit hungry. Fair enough. Hunters, it's just the same sound, but it's been cut off from RE1, which is odd, right? But then stuff like the gulp worm and its roar, absolutely like amazing. Nosferatu's roaring, aura, like, you know, can't beat it. You know when a Bandersnatch is around, is all I'm saying, even if you haven't seen it.
Yep.
You know, that stuff's really, really, really good. Weapon mixing is awful. Background sound, you know, anything else gets eaten up. So, yeah, Code Veronica's soundtrack, however, fantastic.
Fair enough. Kels, any thoughts on the audio in Code Veronica?
And nothing too much extra to add that you haven't already said. I just think to kind of underline it, yep, the soundtrack is easily one of the best. You know, the gothicness, the lullaby stuff, all very, very strong. Just to be the second person to name drop Sherwin on this show. So he mentioned on the original podcast that he prefers the Carpenter B-movie soundtracks over the sort of operatic stuff. And I'm with him. That is my preference, but that takes nothing away from Code Veronica's success in kind of trying to nail what it's going for here, you know, seeing more of that gothic stuff, which is a big part of the story as well. It's so good. I just think, and the save room theme is a top 5 save room without question. I can't remember where we ranked it on our save room tier death experience. I need to go back and check, but listening to it again now, it's like, yeah, this is easily one of the best. And I just think generally audio wise, it's let down in 2 big ways, which you've touched on. One is the reuse. I think the reuse was something I felt back then was a bit cheap, you know, with zombie sound effects and stuff like that, and it just still feels cheap today. It's like when we have that stuff, it's like zombie groans, right? You know, how much time and money does it really take you to record some new sounds? And apparently it's too much for them to justify doing for a new game, which is a shame. I just think it feels like, oh, these are the exact same sounds I've heard on the other side of the world, you know, or in another continent or whatever. And it just, I get picky about that stuff. So it lets it down there. And then the voice acting is 50-50, but the 50% that is bad is just some of the worst you will get. And I just feel like this is one of the, one of the areas where, and some of it's written badly as well, but I think Chris and Steve in particular are performed really, really badly. And this is where Resident Evil wasn't keeping up. This is not a product of the time. It wasn't keeping up with other games at the time. There was plenty of other games with way better performances. And, you know, I like some of the hokiness and some of the funny lines. And the Wesker voice actor, some of the lines are ridiculous, but you mentioned this on the original Podsci. The performance is so kind of hammed up that I accept it and I enjoy it and I have fun with it. I don't have fun with Steve. I just think it's bad. And I think the Chris performance is cardboard, cutout, wooden stuff, which, you know, is sort of what Chris is sometimes. But here it's like vacant as all anything, and wasn't a fan of it. And those things, it's a shame because the soundtrack is great. I just think they really slipped on a couple of the voice actors, and Claire as a voice actor is fine. I just think, again, some of the dialogue is written badly, and maybe we'll sort of move on to that in story and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of with you all. It's a bit of a mix, but the soundtrack is stellar.
I'm glad that you said that about the original podcast, because that sort of backs up what I've got written here for the voiceover as well, because that's kind of the experience I had with it again. I get the obvious critique around some of the voice acting in this game. Some people, I think, go a bit too far with it, and I do think that it's a little bit unfair, because over the years, this kind of become like an iconic, beloved, stupid part of the game / series, and people don't, I'm sure there are some people, but most people are kind of like on board with the ridiculousness of RE1's awkward voice acting. So why can't we all feel similarly about Code Veronica? And I really enjoy a lot, not all of, a lot of the stupid voice acting, if you want to call it that, in Code Veronica. Because, yeah, people mock the performances of characters like Alfred, obviously, and Alexia, but they sort of fit for me, and we're going to talk about story next, but into the absurd stew that Code Veronica sort of presents itself.
Definitely.
And I literally have it written here, as you say, like, Wesker here starts to evolve into this scenery-chewing blowhard very quickly at this point. But it works. It fits. It's part of Code Veronica being the game that starts to push the series in slightly sillier and slightly less grounded directions. So I like it. Steve doesn't quite work for me, but I do think that the character is what works for me and makes sense. But the performance doesn't quite hit the same. Again, it's kind of fun and silly, and we all like to go, where? Like he does when he gets the light shot out of him when you meet him and stuff. But some stuff towards the end is a little bit painful. And now, reading the file Security File from Resident Evil Code Veronica, in character as Alexander Ashford, Steve Quantic, who you can find on Instagram at Stephen Quantic.
Security File. The Ashford family's most important secret is kept at this lab. As a safety precaution, I have installed a self-destruct device in the control room and have placed the activation code inside the computer. Once inputted, all door locks will be released to provide easy access to escape routes. By using the elevator that directly connects to the hangar, one should be able to escape from the lab easily. Please remember that I have used the name of my beautiful ancestor for the activation code. Glory to the Ashfords. Alexander Ashford.
Let's talk about the story then of Code Veronica. In case you need a reminder, it's set 3 months after the events of Raccoon City, with Claire continuing to track down her brother Chris. First of all, at the Paris Umbrella headquarters, where this is the opening FMV, where she gets caught, knocked out, and sent to Rockfort Island, which is Umbrella's own prison island down in the South Ocean near the Antarctic. And a outbreak occurs on the island, which is not really given a whole lot of context exactly. There are zombies coming out of the ground, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's not how the T-virus works, but it's fine. And of course, Wesker does show up, makes his grand return here after his apparent death in RE1. Of course, we have to mention that Claire, who is looking for Chris, once you get hands-on with the game, about 10 minutes in, she's like, oh yeah, I'll send a message to Chris via the internet. Okay, you're not doing a very logical job of looking for him. Why don't you just ask him where he is? It's all very... Well, she's going to send a message to Leon, who will reach out to Chris. I don't know. It's all, it's one of those things that has never made sense. But there we go. And not making sense is certainly how some people feel about Code Veronica, but I am very curious how everyone got on with the plot of the game this time around. James, how do you feel about the story of the game?
Yeah, I just have this. It does make me laugh that she's been looking for Chris for 3 months, and she just brings up MSN.
AOL Instant Messenger back in those days.
She switches from away to online, and Chris is like, "Oh, yeah." Incredible. I can't remember what I said in the previous I'm probably going to retread on stuff. But yeah, the story of Code Veronica is its best thing for me. CV walked so Village could run.
You know what? Yes,
great
absolutely.
Shot.
Yeah.
It's an origin story of one of the creators. You're reaching further into the past. And we don't get all the answers, like what Alexander is exactly, like what happened to Alexia beforehand, other than a couple of notes, and like going deeper into the psyche of Alfred as well. But I kind of like that. At least threads open for fools like me to make fanfics about. But yeah, I do hope. I mean, we'll get into more later. But I do hope the remake will go deeper into this kind of stuff, because I do think it's important to give context to these kinds, especially nowadays as well. So it leaves those threads open for us. I think I mentioned in the previous podcast actually that I'd love to see a game set mid 1900s, sorry, like 1950s, 1960s, when all these creators met and they created all of this, and like now we've got a bit more context with more connections. to back to back all of this up as well. Like, it's definitely possible, and I'd love to see that. I don't know. It might not be cool with a lot of people because they're like, oh, I kind of like that it's left grey, but I don't want all answers. I don't want all questions to be answered. I would love more questions. So if we did a game back then, but yeah, anyway, that's going off. I'm going off on a rant. Wesker being a big part of the game, it made me scratch my head a bit since since exploring the rest of the games, because before this he was considered dead in the mansion in RE1. So at this point, Capcom was just very comfortable with little to no explanation for the story stuff.
Oh yeah, this is a prime example about, it's kind of funny, obviously, in the shadow of Requiem, where we have lots of questions about Umbrella and Spencer and all stuff like this. Yeah, this was very much the case when Code Veronica came out, where obviously the return of Wesker was quite controversial at the time, and nobody really knew who he was working for or what he was doing and how that happened, and suddenly he had superpowers now. So the series hasn't been without these kind of incidents before.
Right. But saying that, that's just one criticism. I did love him in this. I loved his return. Plus the absolutely deserved humbling he got by Alexia was very funny to see.
Yes.
Seeing him have that amount of confidence that he had, thinking he could take her on, and then being scared, that's the first time I think we've seen Wesker be scared. And
they added that. I wanted to point out, in the original Code Veronica, he just leaves and says, Chris, you can deal with this. But in X, it's the one where he just gets chumped, which is a really interesting addition.
Yeah. Is this the only time we've ever seen Wesker actually have fear?
So. Yeah, probably.
I did want to see more of that. So again, hope we get more of that in the future. But yeah, one thing to end on, because this story is quite complex, and I think I went over it quite a bit in the pocket, or we all did, I think. But there is one constant reminder in CV with the Ashford family and its eugenics ethic.
Yes,
it's had like even within themselves, like it's the animals they find the most kin to, like being ants and similar insects, known to kill weaker queens or heads of the hive, heads of hives or nests. Nests. But yeah, they kill them off outright, or leaving them to die without food or company. And I only realized this while I was playing this time. A prime example of that is Xander. Alexander. Why did I say Xander? Alexander. They left him down there to die because they considered him weak.
Yep, absolutely.
I really love that comparison. That's really. I hope. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe we fight like that ant hill thing that we find, right? That ant hill hive thing. Like, there's nothing. No. I would love if we got to kind of get more context on what that is.
Same. Yeah,
the future.
big time.
Instead of having, I really love the Final Fantasy-esque end fight, which I'll go into more later on. But yeah, I would really love more context on that, and maybe connecting that to more of the stuff that we've had come recently in recent remakes and recent mainline games as well. That'd be really, really dope. But yeah, that's all I've got to say on the story. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you for giving it. You've set me up perfectly as well. The whole family obsession that the Ashfords have, as you just mentioned, the parallel with the ants, but also obviously you get it with them. Alexia and Alfred are only born because of implanting of Veronica's DNA, a previous member of the family, into an embryo and that kind of thing. So they are born from their own family DNA and stuff like super weird, like you say, eugenesis stuff. And Steve mentioned at the beginning with the trailer for the new game, kind of having like the Nazi uniform vibe, and Code Veronica starting that way as well. And there are being elements of that still in the game. The tank that you move is famously like a Nazi tank. And in development, they changed it to like British aristocrat because they were worried about the game's sales in Europe and potentially being censored and stuff like that, because obviously, you know, it was the year 2000 and it was a bit closer, and I get it, for a business decision it makes sense. It'll be interesting to see if they kind of try and honour the original game, but also maybe lean even more into that weird side of it as well. The Ashford family, and obviously I've talked before in the past about how, you know, the siblings of them mirroring the siblings in the Redfields, but the Ashfords are the best thing about this game. They make it so interesting, diving into their past. A lot of the notes are about, hey, these are one of the 3 families of Umbrella. This is where we really start to understand this stuff. Like, there was more than just... Well, actually, even at this point, we really didn't know a lot about Spencer either. So it was really interesting the first time to dig into this, and all the game's intrigue and atmosphere really just comes from them, for me. The weird, messed up family of Umbrella outcasts. And I think the remake has such a great opportunity to lean into that even more. As you said, I really hope we learn more about Alexander and even Edward. Previous experience says we probably won't get more details. We might get stuff that connects to more recent games, certainly, but in terms of growing out background histories, I won't hold my breath, because this is what the remakes are like. But as it stands for the original Code Veronica, they are absolutely the centerpiece of the game, and their whole like gothic, aristocratic insanity is what makes the game so unique, even now in the whole series and beyond. I think they're brilliant, and as time goes on, I just like them more and more as it goes, and we'll talk about them a bit more in characters, definitely. It's the other thing with this game is, even though it's weird and wacky, and it's probably the first big shark jump moment in the series. Take, for example, the FMV of Claire outrunning a helicopter and then catching her falling gun, and the tentacles coming out of the Arctic snow and stuff like that. There's plenty of like rule of cool stuff in this game that help me make peace with some of the insanity. The Chris versus Wesker showdown at the end does actually feel pretty epic. Chris and Claire being on screen together briefly is really nice if you've been following the story, even only 4 years in, you know. And as I said, the Ashford family just being like this interesting sort of heart of the whole thing helps me kind of make peace with some of the weirder and wackier and out there stuff. Kelsey, what do you make of the story of Code Veronica?
Yeah, it's despite the campiest, it's this is one of the bleakest stories in the series. I love it. I think the story is great. You've mentioned things that I've got written down, all the themes, the aristocratic themes, family superiority, the gothicness, centering around Claire and Chris and being the opposites of the Ashfords, pursuit of perfection, ending up just making monsters and everything coming crashing down. This Code Veronica story did more for, pushing the Resident Evil that I knew forward than something like RE4 does. And
me too.
I think I've always felt, I've said RE4 feels like a side game for me. And then it's funny because that's RE4 and then this gets called a side game. This is not. This does so much that ties to the originals and pushes it forward. Whether you like all of that, is kind of up for debate. But I think there's the clear through line, being along for that journey with Chris and Claire as well. It's so funny when you think it's just 4 years. Like it had a huge impact on me back at the time, the reuniting of the Redfields. It had only been a few years. So, I think some of the execution of the story is really harmed by the poor dialogue and performances, but, they sort of separate that out. I think what is underneath here, is really, really strong and just interesting for a next step in Resident Evil. We've got references to things like The Thing, Dracula, Frankenstein, Edgar Allan Poe, and Fall of House of Usher. This is like I said this is a Resident Evil game for the sickos, and they chucked loads of stuff in it. They were going nuts with the story as well. They're like, what can we do with this? What can we pull on and cram in? And I think it is a jump, and it is different from some of the themes that came before that were maybe more grounded. I don't think it quite jumps the shark apart from Wesker. And I do have issues with Wesker, which we'll get to. I think, James, what you said about Wesker a minute ago, you nailed it, but I'll talk more about him later. Generally, story-wise, I just think this game, as I say, it's advancing it's doing a really good job of being the next in the series of this big overarching story and advancing things along. If you've been a fan of what comes before and these characters, some of the most interesting things that Resident Evil had done and proposed up to that point. And yeah, I really can't dislike it. We can say what we want about other parts of the game, but it plants so much for the world and the franchise and the universe, and these characters, Ashford's, you've mentioned it, Si, they are flipping brilliant, and I love them despite some of the execution and the voice performances. I mean, I like Alfred's voice performance. I'm with you there as well. Again, I'll get to that in a minute. But generally, what you've both said so far about the story, I think, yeah, we're probably all in agreement. Steve, I can't remember how you felt about the story, but yeah, for me, this is, it's staying on the ground. There's some things I'm critical about Village. I really like what you said, James, about how it walked so Village could run. That is completely right, and you're nail on the head. Some of Village maybe goes in directions that I don't enjoy so much, but this is really great stuff for the next step in Resident Evil. And I feel like after this, it really lost some of it. Resident Evil 4 does lots of cool, quirky stuff, but as I've said, I feel like it's in a vacuum. And then after that, we just get into the bioterrorism, military stuff, which I just have no interest in, really. And what it does here is so much fun, and it plays with campiness, but also really dark themes. You talked about the Nazi stuff as well. And yeah, this is, despite maybe being written by, the writers are, they're game devs, not necessarily literary experts. I'm not sure how old the people who wrote this game were at the time. There's a lot of sort of, it feels like a teenage boy definitely wrote some of this. I'm not saying it was written by a teenage boy, but maybe just sort of young guys, and some of it doesn't work. But thematically, I love it. And it does a lot for Resident Evil as a whole. And it's easily one of the strongest aspects of the game, and something that, again, we'll talk more later, that I think a remake could really give us a real treat in terms of the story, in terms of what we've got in recent years. So yeah, I love the story. I think it's great.
Steve, we've all been quite positive. How do you feel about the plot of Code Veronica?
Generally, I'm in agreement overall. There are some bits that rub me a bit the wrong way. For example, I'm not a big fan of the opening FMV. I don't like Claire killing people, even if they are bad people. You know what I'm following?
Sure.
Stuff like that. It seems out of character for a future, eco person to save people, terror save stuff. That's more incongruence with the character she will become. As with most people, I kind of find Steve a bit tedious. He seems to make the story a bit more awkward. He's an awkward teenager, so the things that he does kind of thing. But I do like is that it introduces the villains early, and even then there are surprise reveals along the way. For example, Alfred, we have Alfred thinking he's Alexia. Turns out he isn't Alexia. Oh no, there is a real Alexia. Oh dang, Wesker's here.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no, bye Wesker. Okay. Stuff like that. All those kind of things, really neat. I like the way that the plot unfolds, and it throws curveballs. Whereas in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, the villains, you pretty much just you know who they are from the get-go. The first time you clock Nikolai in Resident Evil 3, for example, you already know he's pretty much a sussy, not so nice gentleman, even before he tips his hand forward. It might be the faux Russian accent, not going to judge. The main thrust of Code Veronica's great storytelling, I feel, is in the notes, though. Not the voice performances, not the actual cutscenes. It's the moment-to-moment stuff. It's the background stuff of, for example, the Mad Doctor experimenting on people and butchering people. It's, the lineage of the Ashfords, and how Edward Ashford was Alexander Ashford. The one who became Nosferatu did Alexander. A bit of a eugenic. Yeah, Alexander did a bit of a eugenics experiment and making his inbred children twins. That's something that's just nightmarishly off the wall for even at this point in the series. And for as ridiculous as it is, it fits in with what we've had.
Yeah.
Mad science. That being said, I really don't understand why we went to Antarctica and where all these people who we never see just leave.
Yeah.
There are characters who exist but don't really do anything that we see off screen, and then they die. And that's just that's a no-no. Obviously, there's Leon's AOL instant message, you've got mail. Oh, I best go find my sister. Oops. I'm looking for my sister. Have you seen her? You know, that's that kind of vibe. Rodrigo is also there. You know,
Sure is.
I feel like his story was meant to be more developed than it actually was. If I remember reading, I'm sure somewhere there's something about he was meant to be on the island and his story, his parents and stuff, but they just had to massage around it. I'm not 100% sure the content stuff that I've consumed in preparation for this may be misleading me. Point is, there's a lot to chew on here, more so than Star's team goes into mansion, Star's team see their other teammates murdered. You know, two people go into a police station, there is a big biological catastrophe, or woman escapes monster, leaves city, nuclear blast. So, on that virtue alone, how anyone can call this game a side game is unreal to me. Like, Kels has already hit it on RE4, right? You know, but I mean, I love me some RE4. I lost a job over it, you know. But CV is not a side game. Anyone who says that is Delulus, as the kids say. Do kids still say Delulus?
I think they might. Yeah, I think they might. I'll ask. Let's talk about all of them. Let's talk about the characters then. We've kind of all sort of alluded to it, and we've all got various extra details on the characters, I think. I'll just quickly throw my 2 cents in because there's not a lot. But Claire, I think, actually instantly likeable for me, unsurprisingly. Big Claire fan. So against the backdrop of people who mostly aren't likeable in some ways. Like, they're likeable because they're fun to look at, but, you know, most of them are villains and the good guys are just sort of idiots. For example, Chris, he's fine. He's probably the most default he's ever been. I sort of miss his Resident Evil 1 doofus energy. I wish there was a little bit of stupid to him, kind of like bring him to life a little bit. Rodrigo, we've already mentioned. Steve, we've kind of already mentioned. He's fine. I get it. It makes sense to me. This sort of simping teenage boy who unfortunately gets caught up in terrible circumstances, which we talked about this on the server, but if the remake manages to give him the remake hit, like the RE engine glow up, then they've hit the ceiling. Like, there's nowhere else but down from there. That is the hardest one to turn around and make beloved. So if they can do that, and I genuinely believe they can, I think they've ticked all the boxes. Alfred's great, really interesting characters. You've talked about the twists and turns of Alexia not existing, actually existing. Alfred's, you know, sort of mind breaking under the circumstances of his birth when he discovers it. Not only was he created, but also he wasn't even intended. He's sort of a byproduct of this creation. I think he's really intriguing as a character. And Alexia, my queen, I mean, she has so many great lines. She has my favourite line in the entire game, where Wesker says he wants a sample of T. Veronica, and the only sample is within your body. I want it. And she goes, "You want it? You are not worthy of its power."
Incredible.
Which is so good. And of course, I think she's got this one other thing. James, I think she says like this one word. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's one word she says in a particular
I don't know.
way.
What do you mean? Is it... You mean the corridor?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one, yeah. I think, you know, people say that she is crueler in the Dark Side Chronicles retelling for killing Alfred herself. I actually think I like the original version better because it's sort of sweet, but also it's not, because right at the end, you just find Alfred's body stuffed in the tube she came out of. It's really messed up. Like, maybe that's worse. I don't know. She's just like, he's dead. I'll just whatever. I have no feelings after this point. So I thought, that kind of hit me on this playthrough. Overall, a really strong, interesting band of weirdos in this game, definitely. Steve, what do you make of the characters in Code Veronica?
Generally speaking, they're all kind of fun in their own unique ways. Rodrigo notwithstanding, sorry, he's kind of just...
Yeah, that's fair, though.
Like, because Alfred Ashford, you know, of the Ashford family, I'm sorry, he will forever be like one of the goated, insane characters of just being the worst marksman in Resident Evil history. He has a laser sight on it, for God's sake. Like, threatening the first person he sees and immediately blaming them, despite the fact that they have been bombed by HCF. She was in prison at the time, Alfred. Calm down, calm down. But some stunning vocal performances. Obviously, there's nuances to his character and the fact that he is truly pathetic. Like, he enjoys torturing people. He is byproduct at best. He's like Liquid Snake, but worse in terms of that whole genetic creation thing. And then you still feel pity for him because his sister literally sees him as nothing more than a worker ant. Yeah. That's tragic. All his life is dedicated to this woman, and she just does not give two Fs. Mm-hmm. She'll mourn him for 2 seconds, and then, as Saya said, stuff him in a tube. Or if you play Darkseid, murder him. I guess euthanize him because he's already bleeding out. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Alexia, I kind of find, aside from the odd silly line like "You are not worthy of its power" or "Send the spider to the fly, how do you wish to die?" It's a bit. She's okay. I feel like the second she truly enters her quote-unquote knockoff dryad form where she's, spitting blood everywhere, she kind of loses a lot of her threatening aura because she doesn't speak as much.
Yeah, agreed.
When she mutates Capcom in CVR, I don't know what we're going to call it, just REV, which is confusing Resident Evil 5 fans. Give her more voice lines because she needs to be an absolute off-the-wall maniac. Mm-hmm. She spent this test tube like 15 years in stasis, and I guess that means she's, still technically 10 years old, or however old she was before she went in mentally. Play into that child, because she's playing with them. She's playing with people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm all for that. Wesker, I feel like, I know people love Richard Waugh, and obviously his voice acting led to what became for, generally how later voice actors interpreted him. But I always think of Goldman from House of the Dead 2. I want him to go, "Chris, prepare to die, friends." It's that kind of nature to his tone, his voice. His laugh is amazing. Obviously, the big fist fight with Chris at the end, also really good. I'm glad they added the scenes in CVX because having watched back the CV scenes, he just literally appears and bogs off. He gets jobbed off in the fight with Alexia, and then he's gone. He's out of there. And then we come to little Mr. Burnside.
He's mostly gotten away scot-free in this episode, I will say.
Yeah.
Oh, he won't.
No.
There are just so many things. This is a future Andrew Tate fan. This is not, not good behaviour.
Yes.
This is not
You're
good
so
behaviour.
right. You're absolutely right.
Obviously, pinching cheeky glances at a lady's bum while doing work and all these other things. I get it. You're a teenager. Eyes on the prize, boy. You got to get this. You got to get out of here. You got to survive. And obviously, being rude to people, threatening people with guns, all the trauma. Yeah, I get it. Your dad kind of messed up, got your mother killed. Doesn't really excuse that voice performance, does it? No, I kid. There is a whole arc to him, and obviously he goes through so much trauma. I do, in some ways, sympathise. Obviously, he makes good on his promise, and the next time he can, he saves Claire. But he also impedes progress that many times. Otherwise, doesn't really endear.
James, what are your thoughts on the characters? Here we go.
So I'll probably get hate for this, as I kind of alluded to earlier. But there are glimmers of Claire in this game that I do really love, like when Steve comes down to confront her after he attempts to kill her in the courtyard. You see those survival instincts really kick in at that point, and she's demanding answers. And I was like, yes, queen, go for it. But then he calls her babe and girl, and suddenly she's disarmed. What? It made no sense. I hated it. And after this, the only standout for Claire for me was that back and forth she has when she first meets Alfred. Yeah. These are the only key points for Claire that reminded me of Claire from Resident Evil 2. And then she becomes really bland. And the reason she becomes bland is because she's in every scene with Steve. That's right. She's got no one to bounce off of. Yeah. Yeah. And it's awful to see. It's like they're just disseminating the character. It's awful. Again, she's someone I don't even recognize. And then we have Steve, who almost feels like an antagonist with how he is portrayed in this game. He insists on pointing guns at everything and everyone, including Claire, several times. we've all been teenagers, and while some of what he says can be explained with this age, because he's 17, right?
Yeah, something like that.
I can't say I would have been the same as this absolute danger to island society. Like, you know, it's, and like the issue with him isn't on a character level. It's the mechanics of how he works. You know, like this is a character who's lost his dad and his mum, and then is forced to kill his dad. But that is completely drowned out by his attitude towards the events he's in. You know, Alfred, Alexia, Alexander, that family comes off as way more tragic than Steve's did, and Steve's is way more recent and should hit you like a truck.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, we don't even know Steve's dad's name.
Yeah, I think his name is Father.
His name is Mr. Burnside.
Mr. Burnside. That's the Killer's song.
That's what you beat me to it.
Yeah, we don't know his mum's name. You know, how are we meant to be connected? You know,
Mrs.
to
Burnside.
Like the
Mr.
Killer.
Mrs.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Burnside, the sequel to Mr. Brightside.
That's right.
But yeah, and then speaking of villains, because Steve definitely is one. There isn't a single one I dislike. You know, Alfred truly feels like someone who has lost his mind for 15 years.
Yep.
Alexia gives us such a fantastic air of superiority. And Albert Wesker gets humbled in the best way possible by someone who's literally better than he is physically. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like this is why he goes from this corporate espionage spy boy to maniacally evil in RE5. Like, Alexia was Wesker's inspiration. Like, even from like he stole Steve's body to attain that kind of power. Like Wesker had squad goals, and they were to be a forest nymph. There you go.
Yeah, genuinely in lore though, like between this and 5, like I guess at the beginning of 5, when he like goes to see Spencer, like he's got like well, it's kind of like hypnosis sort of thing going on with Spencer with the Wesker program, where eventually they are programmed to seek out their creator, but then when that hypnosis, if you want to call it, sort of breaks, when Spencer dies and he confronts him and whatever, and you know, I will take your responsibility of becoming a god. What's there? What's in that place? And maybe it is he's seen something like Alexia, and he's like, that's how to act when you are all powerful. So I could absolutely headcanon that for sure. Yeah, I like that a lot.
And it could, you know, like at the end of, we got the extra scene at the end of RE4 with RE5 Wesker. Right. Yeah. If they wanted, they could definitely do something pretty cool for if there is going to be an RE5 remake. You know, that, you know, make Steve, because I you know, with Steve's body, I don't want this character to disappear. You know, because his story is tragic. It is tragic. You put it down on paper. Ouch. You know, this is an awful life to live. And as Steve said earlier on at the beginning of the story, like learning about how these things came to pass, how he didn't like get, you know, how he didn't get infected, you know, how he got there in the first place. I want to know all about that. Let me get connected to this character a bit more, because I didn't feel connected at all. Yeah, he might have had all this tragedy happen to him, but why should I care? Because he's just so disjointed and awful. You know, yeah.
We'll talk a bit more about the remakes, but I do think he'll be the character that is fleshed out the most genuinely, and I wouldn't even be surprised if, I'm sure we'll get to play as him in the remake like we do in this game, but he might even get the DLC where we kind of learn about him arriving at the island and stuff like that, which would be cool. But there we go. That's not here or there.
But yeah, Chris, I did love Chris in a way, because his just, I mean, maybe it's my nostalgia from playing this game with Steve all those years ago, right? And the Brummy Chris coming out for some reason. But yeah, he did feel very forced and unnecessary, like of a character to place in. Like it could have been a cutscene next to learning more about Claire and Steve, for instance.
Right.
You know, and it felt like it was after the Alexander fight it was just such a sudden cut to Chris. It felt out of place and weird. But yeah, to end it though, and to go off by my also my thing earlier on in story about bees and hives and nests and stuff. I would like the maniacal evil Alexia, but bees, they also just kick out male drones because they're of no use a certain part of the year. Like I think it's just before winter and the end of autumn. This is literally what Alexia did to Alfred.
Yeah, fair.
You know, which was pretty cool and also stood out to me. But yeah, that's all I got to say on characters.
Kels, characters in Code Veronica.
So I'll quickly start with the one I'm most conflicted about, and that is Wesker. I think, so James, earlier you said his inclusion is kind of odd for you, but he is great in it. And I think that is it for me, because even when I first played this game, I was really conflicted on Wesker, and I didn't like how it was like, oh, he's got some superpowers, magical powers, demonic powers. I didn't like it back in the day, and I don't really like that here. But then outside of that, some of the other stuff he does and the performance-wise is so enjoyable. And story-wise, he feels he's a bit like a third wheel, or a sixth wheel, if you like. He's inserted into this to set things up for the future, rather than to kind of interact too much with the story that's happening. He's there for himself. And Chris does need like, a foil, I suppose. And Wesker is that barrier for him in this game. But I just think I would have preferred it if Wesker was more in the shadows than how front and center he is here, to set him up for the big stuff that he does eventually in Resident Evil 5. I don't know. This is the part where it's like the game doesn't jump the shark, but Wesker maybe did jump the shark a little bit for me. So I'm still conflicted on it. It's like I enjoy him, but I think you could take Wesker out of this game and mostly still get a really great game. Like you said, Si, the payoff with Chris at the end is really good, and it is good, and I remember enjoying that as well. But I think it's one of the least interesting parts about the game. The other stuff is better. So Wesker's a funny one here. But yeah, the rest I'm kind of all clear cut on. I think the Redfields, their loyalty to each other is solidified even further in this game, and pick whatever holes you want in sort of how Chris got there and how they contact each other. But I love their dynamic, and this following through with Claire, what she set out to do in Resident Evil 2 and finding Chris, and Chris, once he's finding out that Claire's in trouble, he seeks her out. There's no reason to say that Claire hasn't been trying to contact Chris, and he's just been ignoring her, leaving her on red because he's off doing his own thing, and he wants her to stay away from the danger. He's
absolutely
out taking down Umbrella, but now
we have evidence for that. So yeah. So once he finds Claire like that is a great moment, and I think their dynamic, Claire and Chris, is infinitely better than Steve and Claire's, and the Redfields are hardly even on screen together in this game. So. Yeah. Like, I'm a big fan of that. And, whatever you think of some of the way Claire behaves, I think it's maybe just down to some poor writing. But, generally, I really love the Redfields. And then to a similar extent, yeah, the Ashfords, a lot of what you said earlier, Si, like for me, they are the most interesting part of this game. They are the reason for why so much is happening. It all kind of makes sense, and why all of these paths in the game are crossing. And I think the game and the Ashfords do really well at kind of bringing you in for this ride, because I feel it's so strange and quirky and a bit of a jump from what we've had before. But I feel invested in their history, their weirdness, the experiments that were going on and how they ended up here, their relationship to each other, saying so much about, this family obsession that we've talked about, their dependence, their pride. There's just so many cool things in there, and the dark places that you can go to if not kept in check, which ties back to what we've talked about, the Nazism and stuff like that. The Ashfords are so good, and there's always conversations around Alfred, but I think it's reductive in a certain way, because his obsession, it's
for a specific person, and it's for Alexia and this family, and that's the result of his detachment from reality, not anything else. And his loss of self, and there's sort of tinges of Psycho and stuff in there, which is really, really cool. And their symbol being the dragonfly is really cool, and the tearing off the wings in the video is such an impactful moment. It says so much about who they were as children and what they were going through, and then the footage that you see. And Code Veronica is not the last time that Resident Evil plays with the idea of family and obsessions. We get it with the Bakers, the Dimitrescu's, the Winters, and Spencer and that. But I think the Ashfords are more iconic than they often get credit for. Maybe some of the, quote unquote, the hardcores among us of Resident Evil fans, we get it, and there's a lot of love for them. But they are, say what you will about Johannes Roberts, but I'm no surprise that they were referenced in Welcome to Raccoon City, because, looking at all the stuff in Resident Evil, you take one look at them and you go, oh my God, yeah, let's get these guys in there. This is utterly nuts. I think what they represent for the lore, thematically, these are all-timers of characters in Resident Evil, and I am so excited to see what the remake does with them, because we could get, if you think what we've had recently, like Gideon was a great character. I think he's sort of in that direction, and obviously we got Salazar as well, similar. These weird characters, we have had them. I think a remake version of the Ashfords, it has potential to be some of the best stuff we've seen in any of the remakes, and I cannot wait. I just think, in their performances, we sort of talked about it, I think their performances are good, and that is the campiness I like. I think they're written fine, as opposed to somebody like Steve. So much love for the Ashfords. And then, to wrap it up on Steve, I just think if Claire is like the Ripley or the Sarah Connor of Resident Evil, then Steve is the John Connor without any brain cells or a dirt bike. He comes off as like a 7-year-old and not the troubled teenager that they kind of want him to be. And I do think a big part of that is the writing, the performance. I know some people like Steve. I think they like him in spite of those things. I think he is one of the worst things about this game. And there's part of me that I want to feel sorry for him, and I see what they're trying to do, but because it's sort of executed so badly, that where he ends up in this game, his fate, it doesn't impact me at all, really. I actually find it quite comedic by the end. And I'm not going to be too harsh on, James, some of the stuff you were saying. It's like, he's an antagonist and stuff. It's like, I get it. He is. I just think he's just a poorly executed character. And the remake, again, you said, Si, could do so much for him. So I'm very keen to see, Steve Burnside is a reason alone for a remake as far as I'm concerned. And so there is so much to love about the characters in these games. Like I say, I'm a bit conflicted on Wesker because of where we end up with him as well. And it's like, they're planting these seeds here for what came later in Resident Evil, which I really didn't like. And although I like the face-off between Chris and Wesker, and his hatred that he keeps talking about time and time again, the Alexia and all this, it's all so good. But it's like, I just don't like the shark jumping of his character, which I know some people have shared on the previous episode. But rubber stamp it, the Ashfords, they are iconic, and I'm so excited to see what they do with them in the remake.
On the case of Wesker, I just want to quickly add, whilst I absolutely get it, I do like that this is one of those rare Resident Evil games where they do go out of their way, especially in X, obviously, when they've added all this stuff in, to let us know where we're going, where we're heading, what to look forward to. The story is going to continue. I wish they do more stuff like that, where they kind of like, not leave stuff open, but like tell you, hey, this is a plot thread that we are going to follow up one day, instead of just giving us a bunch of like post-credit scenes that amount to nothing. But there you go. We did characters in traditional fashion, then we'll flip-flop over to the other side and do some monsters. Steve, how do you feel about the selection of BOWs in Code Veronica?
Well, I'll start with the big strengths. Like, the sweepers have that late game Streets of Rage energy. They've got that like Gaussier recolor aura, but they're more deadly. Gotta love that. Wish more of the Resident Evil games did it. I think we only had like the Lickers in Resident Evil 2 Classic that also do the Gaussier and just become darker skinned or altered skinned and become more dangerous. Love that. Really appreciate that. The zombies, as I've already mentioned, that they kind of feel less threatening due to, you have, more threatening because you have depowered hardware, but everything kind of feels a little bit limp with the audio. I kind of don't know how to feel about Bandersnatchers, but they are unique. Like, if you see in anything the silhouetted, elasticated, yellow, one-armed snot man, you know what game he's from. And in that regard, at least they stand out. Tyrant, irritating. Hate him. Get him out of this game. He's rubbish. He ruins the pacing. He's a soft lock thing. Yes, I did die to him a few times back in 2001. What of it? No, Alexia, love her first design, less her second design, the giant blob beast with the tentacles. And then her third design as the dragonfly, I find wonderfully poetic, because obviously they torture a dragonfly and then she becomes one, and then, it's all narrative theming. Love it. That being said, if I see a Seeker drone in the remake game, it best have purpose. So generally speaking, a full suite of enjoyable monsters. Just the zombies are a bit But when they show up to work and they're half asleep, what are you going to do?
That's right. It's on them. I think that Code Veronica, when you zoom out, has quite a lot going for it. Zombies. We have zombie dogs in the beginning. Bandersnatchers, new enemy there. Spiders come back, and a giant spider as well. We have the gulp worm. 2 different kinds of hunter. The return of the moths, of course, the return of the tyrant, and I think 5 or something unique bosses, or pretty close to that. It's quite a decent number. Although the caveat, of course, being that the game somehow has 2 boss fights that you just run from. The giant spider, really cool design, but you don't have to fight it all. Like, it comes out of the ice, you just grab the item and leave because you're never going back. And the Albinoid, which might be the stupidest BOW in Resident Evil history. Has anyone ever actually fought this thing? And if so, why did you fight it? Because all you have to do is hop in the water, again, pick up the item, maybe chow down on a green herb afterwards, because you probably get hit once. And that's it. It's so weird. It also has a little bit of build-up as well. It's such an interesting, weirdo thing, but it just amounts to nothing. But yeah, from an overview, quite strong. I think I'm with you, Steve. I think the Bandersnatchers are cool in theory, but they don't land quite the same as Lickers and Hunters do. Same with RE3's Drain Demos. The lack of a good FMV intro as well probably isn't helping matters. And of course, I think they vanish after you leave Rockfort. I don't know if you see any in the Antarctic at all.
Does Chris fight any?
I'm not sure. He might fight some in Rockfort when he's there, but I'm not.
One comes out of the tube in Rockfort, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yes, but they do sort of disappear after a certain point in the game. The other thing for BOWs for me, sort of going back to what I was talking about, visuals a little bit with the character models. It's not always guaranteed, but the game does have more character model interaction with the environment because it has a 3D environment. You have enemies that slump against railings and stuff when you hit them or kill them. I had a hunter fall down and sit in the corner of a room. He looked depressed. It was great. The only problem is that, as we mentioned, there are areas with infinitely spawning zombies, which sucks. Yeah. And I couldn't be sure, can they also follow you through doors? It happened to me literally once with I talked about it before, the Iron Maiden with a zombie that pops out. If you know that's coming, obviously you can back right up and get out. He followed me into the next room. I don't think it's ever happened in any other room though, so I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, it's okay. There's no real shame outside of a whole Albinoid and a whole boss spider design that you don't really get to experience because there's no point in fighting them. Kelsey, what do you make of the BOWs?
Well, I don't want to complain too much because it's if there wasn't such a huge range of enemies in this game, we'd be whinging and saying, "Oh, there's only 4 enemies, and there's it's not very good." But they stuff it with loads of different enemies. Like I said earlier, they're going ham on this game with Resident Evil. All the classics are in there, and then we've got loads of new stuff as well. And we were begging for spiders until we got to Requiem. There's loads of the bastards in this thing, and it's though I really am annoyed at the respawning and stuff. It's just it feels harsh on me. It's I can't be too critical. The worm, you don't have to fight the worm either. You can just run past it both times. And this game does a lot of that, of the enemies that you can run past. I think a bit like Steve, that tyrant, I love the design. Because it evokes the classic tyrant a lot more, which is one of my favorites. But the positive about it for me is that when I originally played this game, and it still feels like this now, it's like the face-off in the plane feels like the end of the game. It's like, I could be getting towards the end of the game here, but it's like a swerve. It's like, nope, you're only halfway through. So it's it's fair to have that mid-game boss that's like a throwback to the original. And we haven't really talked about this at all, but there are so many throwbacks to RE1 in this game, including literal recreations of the rooms. And it's like, this is a big part of what they're doing in this game. And so, yeah, the dogs are there. They're annoying. The spiders are annoying. The hunters are terrifying. What I did in this game a lot more than any Resident Evils I've played recently is I was going to, through a couple of halls and just getting damaged or killed and having to restart and reload my save. I died loads, to the enemies. They can be formidable, if you're not going about it the right way. So, in terms of anything super interesting, one of my favorite bits in the game that I think is epic is it's confined to the cutscene, and that's when Steve and Claire are driving away in the snowplow thing, and the giant tentacle from Alexia just crashes through across the land. Like, that is so cool, that sequence. And when it wipes out their vehicle, like that's cool Resident Evil stuff. I like that. But yeah, not too much else to say. I think there is a smorgasbord of enemies that I think the remake will probably tone down. Like, are we getting all of these in the remake? I think it's highly unlikely. Something's getting cut. Probably the Albinoid. Yeah, but then I don't know, because like RE4 remake is stuffed with enemies as well, and horde rooms and things like that. And I'll have some more remake points in a minute, but yeah, what's here? There's something for everyone, or something not for everyone if you're not a fan of the Bandersnatchers, which I mean, they are so annoying. They seem to hit you no matter where you're stood, and the bit up towards the bedrooms and stuff where there's two of them out in the little stone courtyard, it's just, it's so annoying. But yeah, I'm not going to complain, because they chuck loads at you, and that's what you want, really, I suppose, from Resident Evil.
My cut boss prediction is actually the other one. I'm going to put it out there now. We'll probably reiterate some of the stuff when we do wish list before Veronica drops. I think the spider is going to get cut purely because we just had one with Requiem, and they don't want to kind of redo it. Like, there's only so many ways you can do a spider boss fight, right? So maybe they avoid that one. But there you go. Actually, also, while we're on the subject, and we will talk about the remake in a little bit more before we close up, I think I alluded to this perhaps on, I don't know, actually, it might not have even been a first date spray, so shout out to the What Culture Gaming listeners. But when I reviewed Pragmata, there's a section, I'll talk vaguely, but there is a section in that game where you where there is a giant like space worm, like a robot worm thing. You don't fight it, but it's rocking around the environment. And yeah, while playing it for review, I saw it and immediately went, okay, so we're getting Resident Evil Code Veronica. Yeah. This feels like them just trying it out in another game to see how it works. Definitely. So I would say pretty confidently the Gulp Worm is going to be in there, because we have evidence of them figuring out how to make it work in another RE Engine game. So there we go. James, thoughts on BOWs before we move on to talking a bit more about the remake?
I can't believe how negative you guys have been about the Albinoid.
He's just a little guy.
Our beloved Albinoid. Like, it's such a unique design. It should. I am annoyed.
I mean, it's a salamander, but it looks like an axolotl.
Yeah,
right.
Does it look like an axolotl?
It's a really cool. Like, do you know what else it looks like? It looks like the hammerpede from Prometheus as well. Yeah, a little bit. And I think it's a unique design, so it should definitely stay, but it should have more of an impact.
Genius, James. We do what they did with the Geodults, so we make them frigging everywhere. Yeah. So they're dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see a bunch of them, like medium-sized, of these, like scurrying around all over the walls and stuff.
That'd be sick, because they made several of them, didn't they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know, like, the Albinoid might be this game's Praise the Moth moment.
It kind of is, yeah.
It is entirely pointless, but they're adorable, so it's okay. right?
That's ironic, really. No one's mentioned the moth.
I know.
The worst enemy in the game.
Yeah.
Bar none. It poisons you outside of the save room, and then you just keeps infinitely respawning, and then you're 15 blue herbs down, and you're down on your luck, and then you swear at the game's console, turn it off, start again in a week, and you just get poisoned again, you turn it off again, and you just get into a rage cycle.
Yeah, it's you're completely right. Yeah, it's they're awful. I don't like the moths, which is funny. It's a glow down, isn't it?
It is a
but
glow
then again, were they a glow up ever? Like I don't know.
They haven't got it yet.
They're just a mid. They're just mid. That's what they are.
They were a boss fight sort of like thing in Dark Side Chronicles. They kidnap you as a character, or is that Outbreak File? One of them.
They're in Outbreak 1 where they fly around the central pillar. I don't know if they can pick you up and poison you. I don't know if they can take you away. I can't remember.
Oh, there's a GIF in chat. They can in fact kidnap you.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, sick! Kidnapping moths. That's an interesting legend. So with when Claire gets found by Chris, what stuck her on that wall? Was it moths? She gets stuck on a wall, right? Or am I thinking of another game?
I don't know. It might have been Alexia, I guess, because she was what was in that room. I don't know. I can't remember how she gets knocked out. She gets knocked out because of the tentacle thing, right? Yeah, and that's when next time you see her, she's slimed up against the wall. So presumably Alexia.
She gets gooped by Alexia.
She gets gooped.
Gooped,
Bit of an oddity, isn't it? Because that green goop is a different consistency to all the other goopy style things in the game. Like it's just got like fun guns from Noel's house party. And go, there you go, Claire. Dish, dish, dish. That's a reference for everyone over 40.
She got Bugsy Maloned.
We're getting into the goop tangent of the podcast now.
But yeah, I had a section on just ignoring it. Like you ignore the bats, essentially ignore the bats as well. When you got the lighter, and like Bandersnatchers, nobody wants to fight the Bandersnatchers. You run by the Bandersnatchers, and then you find out they can Bandersnatch their way up one level, which is terrifying. But yeah, the game is just ignore the BOW, the game. How are you going to ignore? Which one are you going to ignore next? Yeah. Because the first time you fight any of them, I'm like, oh my God, this takes so much ammo. Yeah. It's worth me taking the hit rather than just pummeling them with ammo. I think that's gameplay stuff, but I think that is kind of everyone does it. Like, so it is kind of, I feel like when it comes to any kind of game design or any kind of game design in anything, to be honest, if players are doing one thing too much, then there's something wrong, and I spoke about it earlier in story and audio, but the guns, like putting 20 bullets into one zombie is just horrific. And then other guns one-shotting. The power scaling is so off in this game. It's really wild. Like everybody knows gas rounds are like the king. Everything else kind of sucks other than maybe the exploding bolts. But yeah, the peak moments though, despite being able to ignore half of them, are the bosses. Like your first introduction, because I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think the first introduction to the Bandersnatch feels like a mini boss in a way.
Kind of.
In the base. Alexander, huge. I freaking love Alexander's fight. The tyrant in the plane. He's difficult, but it's also a very interesting take. The giant Black Widow, which is so interesting because it's definitely not a Black Widow. That thing's green and goopy. Everything's goopy.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the spider that did it.
Maybe. Something buggy, knowing Alexia, so...
knowing her proclivities.
Yes, exactly.
And all of Alexia's forms as well. She is still in my top 3 boss designs.
Nice.
With Miranda being 1, and I think she takes 2nd or 3rd, to be honest. Like, and she was first, like before Village came out. But mechanically... everything is kind of hit and miss with the bosses. Like the only ones that stand out really are the Alexander, which is the best boss fight in the game for me, and the Tyrant in the Plane. Everything else is kind of meh mechanically and not super inspiring to play against, but they're great to look at. Yeah,
they are great to look at. We haven't really talked about it. It's definitely worth mentioning the Alexander boss fight where if you grab the sniper rifle, the kind of like whoa moment in 2000 where suddenly you're playing Resident Evil Code Veronica in first person, which is really, really neat. And obviously you get it a little bit at the end as well with the linear launcher, which, you know, doesn't necessarily work super great, but it's cool that they threw it in there, which is cool. Cool, right, before we wrap this up then, let's talk a little bit more about the remakes. We talked about it in the news, but now that we've gone through Code Veronica Classic, what are our thoughts in terms of how this is going to be adapted, how you would like it to be adapted into the remake, your expectations, that kind of thing? It is all very much early days yet, obviously, so it's all a bit of a mystery. I think lots of people are making the assumption, and I don't think it's necessarily confirmed, this is going to be a game with a lot of changes to it, and what that means, obviously, mileage may vary. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle our biggest complaint of the last couple of hours, which is kind of the structure of the gameplay beats and stuff like that. You can't help but wonder if doing one area at a time in a more classic style would work better. But does that take away what makes the game different? Probably so. It's probably not an easy problem to fix, but I do wonder if they just take the locations, take the key items, and then just kind of plot a brand new path through them and sort of series of puzzles, and just use the basis of the areas. I wonder if that's what they're going to do personally. But mostly it's a lot of little things for me, and we talked about a bunch of them, like changing the moth hallway that Steve had his little moment about, as you absolutely should have your little moment about. I had mine while playing it several times because it's so annoying, because you get an egg on the back and you're like, well, the best way to deal with this is just to go back in the save room, because it instantly hatches when you get in the save room, and then you have to go back through the moth hallway. Like, yo, okay, I've got to go back out there, grab a blue herb on the way if I'm poisoned, and then get out without it happening again. And you can do that like 3 times without getting a clear run through. So I think they'll absolutely scrap that and do something with it. Let's hope we do finally get the moth, though, in the RE engine, like we got the spider last time. And one of the other ones I think that I've always wanted is give Claire the final boss fight instead of Chris. And we talked about this a little bit on the server about giving Chris something else to do, which I won't steal. But I do think Claire should fight Alexia at the end. It's only appropriate. Yes, you know, maybe they did try and attempt to say that Code Veronica is a game for both the Redfields, and that is true. But you spend so long and you start playing with Claire at the beginning of the game that it always felt weird to me to hand off the reins to Chris to the end, personally. The other thing as well that I want to mention as well, a couple of things, is I said I would get back to this at the beginning when we talked about it in the news, and I never did. But it's come up repeatedly throughout the use of the phrase mainline Resident Evil game. Kelsey, you said it at the start. It's come up a few times. This is you've probably seen this being reported elsewhere, but it is worth talking about the name Resident Evil Veronica. Somebody asked about that in the Q&A that I was in, about why the name change, why the drop in the word code. And it really is just to bring it in line with the state of Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil Requiem. Mainline Resident Evil games are Resident Evil and a single subtitle. So that is to say that they are treating this seriously and kind of considering it a mainline game because they're giving it that treatment. Yeah, it's a remake. They could have kept the same title. But no, they've dropped the code, which probably makes more sense from a naming convention just broadly. But also, yeah, to bring it so it looks nicely alongside Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil Requiem, because it is a mainline game, as it has always been, by the way. But now they're making that very, very clear in the naming convention. And also, I think, personally, very, very clear by giving it to the team that made Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 some of the most beloved games of the last however many years. They have not shipped this off to a third-party studio or whatever. This is being developed by a pretty prominent team in Capcom. So they are treating this, they are doing this seriously. So there you go. We talk about mainline. Veronica is definitely going to be mainline. The last thing for me as well is that I think, real early days prediction, it'll be really interesting to listen to this in a couple of years' time. This is most likely going to be, for me, it has a good chance of being one of those ones where the remake is better than the original. We had that conversation about every Resident Evil remake. How do you feel about it compared to the original? And overall, I'll always pick the originals, except I think I like 4 Remake better. It hits some things better for me. Obviously, like you, Kelsey, I've never been quite as warm to the original as some people. So I really love Remake 4 more so than the original game. And even though I love the original Code Veronica, all of these things that we've talked about that held it back, they can potentially fix all of them. And if they don't mess up the story or the characterization, I think that is a good chance for them to really elevate Code Veronica by highlighting those things that made it so great, bringing them to a broader audience that Resident Evil now has, but also fixing a bunch of the issues. This is one of those games, I talked about it earlier, where we've remade the obvious ones. Now we're remaking the games that probably need a remake, and that's quite exciting. So, James, what do you make about Resident Evil Veronica? How do you feel about it after playing Code Veronica? What are the things you're looking forward to them? How they're going to approach, whether they keep it the same, change it, etc.
Yeah. First of all, well said. So
Thank you.
everything there I agree with. Yeah. So like I've gone on record in the past that Code Veronica and Outbreak are the two games in most need of remakes. And I think we're all in agreement here.
Outbreak would be amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, playing through Code Veronica has made it even more clear like how much it needs it. And you at the end of what you said there, like potentiality is key here. Like, cause there's just so much potential in this game.
Yeah.
And if they just fix just very minor things that they've done very well with recently, like inconsistent character writing.
Yeah.
As we've all mentioned, the gameplay stuff, and Kel's put it really well earlier on. Like, you know, yes, it's very Resident Evil, but I didn't have fun playing it. You know? Yeah. And it's like, you know, I mean, that's not verbatim, but that's what I kind of heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gameplay stuff changes would come a close second, and they have done gameplay quite well as well. Like RE4R, I think it's quite well known now that a lot of folks consider that a better game than the original. Which is the first time that's happened with any of these remakes. It's very cool to see. I mean, they didn't have as much to work with RE4. They just needed to improve the gameplay and add maybe a little bit more context.
You didn't want to mess it up and change it too much, right? So
yeah, and like it was already kind of a weird entry lore-wise. So yeah. But yeah, connecting us closer to Steve instead of making him this caricature of what a creepy teenager is, as you said, Sai, would be the biggest glow up in the history of the series, if done right. This boy who loses his mother, father because of some Umbrella secrets, and then losing his father to the virus, which ultimately leads Steve to kill him. That should be something that they put all their time into, because it deserves that. And it will finally shut us up, you know, about Steve. Like, we'll finally go, yes, I like this boy now, you know. We want to like a character in Resident Evil who's meant to be a good guy, you know, in some way. And like the Claire romance, it doesn't even need to be addressed. Like, if they don't need to address it. We've seen Claire be compassionate and care about people. We don't need this shoehorned romance to showcase that. Like, learning Steve's story throughout Claire's playthrough needs to be the focus for us to kind of connect to this character better. Maybe even having a gameplay section with him that's beyond him just showing off with two pistols. I'm also not saying to ditch. I am not saying to ditch the romance entirely, but remove the problematic stuff that we got with him in the past, because it's really cringe. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Like, I'm a full promoter of cringe, but that is bad cringe, right? It's not good cringe. But yeah, this, like, them working together as well. Personally, it will allow me to connect with Claire a lot better in this game. If she just becomes her own character instead of being someone who works off Steve, and you know, because she feels a little bit like, I mean, this is just my own personal opinion, but she does feel like a side character to Steve. Like, whatever he does, she is reacting to, you know, and then I don't think it should be that way. This is Claire Redfield, you know, she's epic. When she's shown how much of a character she is and how strong she is, we don't need this teenager to bring her down, you know, and could we be done with respawns? Yes. Please. Or limited number of respawns, potentially. I don't mention this game quite enough as I maybe should have, but maybe Dark Souls 2 could be brought into here, where they do have limited respawns. You can only have a certain amount. It would also draw into the fact that this island has been infected and taken over. There's been an outbreak, but they're only a limited amount. Maybe you'll get rewards if you do take these respawns out. Again, I'm just talking about game mechanics. I don't know crap. But yeah, get rid of the backtracking. Not all of it, just enough so we can actually have fun. Instead of being just exhausted about going from one end of the game to the next, please. But yeah, this game is considered one of the hardest to rank out of all the Resident Evil games. Yeah. Like Steve, who is, he'll probably shout me down here, one of the best people I know who's played Resident Evil. And I don't know if he tried, but he has been trying to attain A rank in this game. And as of yesterday, failed to do that, right, Steve?
Oh yeah, just dox me live on podcast. But yes, I have done. I have,
right, Steve. Right,
ladies and gentlemen, I have waned. My star has waned. I got it on PS2 a million years ago, and I'm trying to do it on the modern consoles, and I just haven't really got. Haven't got the verve, you know. You get crushed by a cylinder block, you kind of lose your vibe.
I don't want to. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus. But what I'm saying is that Steve is very good at these games, you know, and even Steve is having trouble with it. Its length, the gameplay decisions, the pacing of it. I got very bored and frustrated as soon as I hit Chris's section in this game. I shouldn't feel that way about the return of a beloved character, because I actually really love RE1 Chris, and it reminds me of RE1 Chris a lot. And yeah, please bring us an amiibo of RE1 Chris to coincide with Code Veronica. Yeah, and obviously there's the big elephant, which is the remake. It will need to change and address some problematic themes that we got in the original game. Like Claire calling Alfred a cross-dressing freak, which I believe this makes it worse, is that this was added in the Western localization, by the way.
I believe
the Japanese translation was Alfred, this is your doing. They completely changed it, which is wild. And I don't think it will be, but if it is, man, will this get docked some points? Like, it should not be in the remake.
I would imagine. Yeah, there's no way they put that line in. But this is a broader conversation that we'll probably have to have at another point, because otherwise we'll go on too long. Might be worth an episode. But it's. I don't think it's about the. And we've talked around this a little bit. Alfred being a quote unquote problematic character or anything like that. No. There is a big difference between releasing a character like him in the year 2000 and in the year 2026, where the audience will interpret him in certain ways or use him as in certain ways, I guess. So that is that's probably a conversation to come that's worth having, certainly. Steve, how are you feeling about the Veronica remake and now that you've got the Code Veronica back under your belt?
Low-key, actually really excited, because I've been on record probably saying Code Veronica needs a remake more than the others do. Like, it's definitely more than 4 ever did. I know people like 4 remake, but, I think CV, the thing is, I think this is going to be the first time where they play it so unsafe. Yeah. Like, it's going to be even worse than 3R's changes. There's going to be so many things moved around, and that's all the better for it, because one of the main blowbacks to CV is, in fact, its gameplay. Like, if they can just change the flow of the game and adjust how mechanics work, you're already in for a great time. Like, the story is mad. I think all they need to do is lean into a few more documents and make the Ashfords that little bit more insidious or conniving, I think would be the word. Tie them more into the current era plot very easily by having Wesker's HCF mention the connections just once. And then you've got Old Guard Umbrella and vestibules like that. It's going to be very interesting to see. I feel like the 3D printer machine that we've seen like 5 minutes in the original game is going to be retroactively turned into some kind of other service, though. My mind's eye says that's a merchant, like Requiem's one for Leon.
Okay.
I can see you taking Umbrella books from Daniel Fabron's old game. Not necessarily really, but using that to get stuff. For some reason, I think this is going to be an action game more than the horror game was.
Interesting.
More so than its original counterplot. I'm not going to go into full theory hat, but Gas Mask Man in the trailer, I believe, is probably Rodrigo kidnapping Claire, not Hunk, as everyone seems to think. I think Hunk's going to be in this. Because he's meant to be USS, isn't he? Like, or at least I think he is. He's meant to be the USS who's part of the facility Claire would be assaulting in the original game.
Who? Rodrigo?
Yeah. He's like security for that building. We went with Claire to the island.
This is true. Yeah, he is technically security, but I don't know. Yeah, actually, I've never really thought about it.
I mean, the USS is Umbrella Security Service.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being a bit too literal there, but anyway, I think the intro that or at least the trailer screams that's our new intro, much like the gas station, much like Jill's apartment, much like Leon's walk to that house in 4R. They like changing the intro for some reason. Totally on board with that.
Yeah, fair.
I hope Chris is slimmed down. I hope we have not got another new Chris voice actor. You know, maybe we don't get Jeff Sheen back in. Maybe we get Kevin Dorman in.
Oh my God, yes, please.
You know, just and I neglected to talk about the performances of Claire and Chris because they kind of are for me a little bit wallpapery in CV. I hope they are less so in the remake because I personally find them the most boring characters in it. No shade. I know people love Alison. Please God, don't be with the dead. Like, you know, I know people love Alison.
Steve. I'll stand with you, Steve. Don't worry.
So I'm gonna offer you an olive branch. And I personally think because obviously Alison came back to not be Jubilee, but she was in X-Men '97 in a cameo role. Low key, I hope they cast her as Alexia. Just saying. That's my tinfoil hat.
Oh my
wish.
God, yes, that's incredible.
You know, that way you can have Stephanie versus Alison Court, and the fans go wild. You know. And on Simon mentioned it earlier about how Claire should be the one to fight Alexia. She absolutely should. So then we can have a Wesker boss fight. I think we talked about this in the chat in the Discord earlier this week. But yes, make it so Claire finishes off Alexia, and then Chris gets to have a fist fight with Wesker and probably lose. But then, you know, Deus Ex Machina has a girder in his nose. That's all great. So yeah, so Loki, excited. Last thing, Steve was in the trailer. He's that man with the hood up, 100%, 50p on the Discord bet.
Yeah, I agree. You can get a proper look at him, but there can't be anyone else. Kelsey, what are your thoughts on Veronica now that you played Code Veronica? How are you feeling about the potential things that might change or stay the same?
So, I mean, Steve mentioned Requiem already, and I do wonder if... because I've got my main thing about the remake, but just quickly, so gameplay-wise, it is interesting to think, what are they going to do? Are we going to get a Requiem style, you know, Claire being survival horror, Chris being action? You know, what? I'm so interested to find out how they deal with this dynamic. And when I was thinking about my notes for this podcast, controversially, there was part of me that was like, I wonder if they're going to all but cut Chris's playable sections out of this game, and that could be one of the big controversial changes that they do, because I suppose they got a couple of options. It kind of quote unquote replicate it, or they do something that we've seen more recently, which is do what Requiem has done and kind of split the gameplay styles across the characters to offer respite or whatever. Now, obviously there's a gameplay section for Chris in Village, which I hate, and I know many people hate as well. And I don't think they're going to go that far. And I'm fine with a bit of action fun, but I am wondering if we're going to end up with two styles in one again, which, you know, was mostly landed in Requiem. I've got my sort of issues with it, but thinking about pacing and stuff and how it's going to work, I'm just very interested to see what they do, because for me, that's one of my biggest questions about how they're going to approach the remake is the gameplay, because the main thing for me, I think, really is going to be about characterization and performances. And I think there's no bones about they're just going to smarten everything up. And, you know, I'm so glad that a remake is on the way, because those bones of Code Veronica and its story I think are some of Resident Evil's best. And given the real time, care and attention, you know, given to the production of it and performances, we could get an absolutely, you know, batch modern update that just has got all that quirkiness of Code Veronica, but with this new production value and approachability that it sort of so desperately needs, and we're kind of more used to with the recent games. So we could be getting the Resident Evil charm with just a more sort of immersive and tonally balanced experience, which, you know, Code Veronica, I think they're going to want to appeal to so many people with this. Like you said, one of the main teams is on it. They're going to want to shift a load of copies, and I have faith in Capcom, but it's going to be quite approachable. So for me, it's about those performances. I'm not even really fussed about changing much of the gameplay. You know, the metal objects box and the puzzles and stuff. They could keep a lot of it the same. The Lugers are in the trailer as well, so I think gameplay wise it might feel slightly more streamlined. But for me, when I think about what the remakes have done for characters like Kendo, Marvin, Luis, and even Jill Valentine, who I maintain Remake 3 is my favourite depiction of Jill Valentine by far and away, this could do some fantastic stuff for characters. And for me, that is the thing I think they're going to be putting a lot of work into. I don't think we're going to see any new locations. I think it's mostly going to be one for one, some, like I say, some tidying up and some streamlining. But question is about how they handle the differences between Chris and Claire's sections. Are we going to get to play as Steve? Like you said, a DLC, maybe. I think that's probably sensible and a good way to go. I just have a question about action versus survival horror. Steve thinks it's going to be a little bit more action. I'm kind of with him there. That's, where they've lent a bit more recently with Remake 4 and such. But yeah, like I said earlier, with the Ashfords and the story, huge fan. So I hope they maintain all those sort of flavors and roots and themes and just do better characterizations and better performances. And we know that the cutscenes and the performances from characters in Resident Evil of recent years have just been incredible. So I have no reason to expect anything other than that for this. And that's what I'm most excited about for a remake. And yes, that is what it needs. Remake 4 could have never had a remake again. I'm glad it did, and I do prefer the remake, but Code Veronica is, the remake's going to be welcome, and I'm very, very excited.
Cool. We're running kind of long. Should we just cut conclusion and close it off there? It feels like a nice place to stop, unless anyone really wants to.
To conclude, I will speak for everybody.
Go on, Steve. Tell it like it is.
Classic Code Veronica is a mixed bag, right? We all hope the remake can iron out what little kinks it's got. Elevate Steve, for example, and traverse the complexity of the game's plot with grace and compromise where appropriate. We aren't in the year 2004, as we've already said. Right, to summarize this for the superfans out there, as that one Bugs Bunny meme in a suit says, I wish every Code Veronica superfan a very play it. For everyone else, your mileage may vary. The game has great music, though. It's a bit of an odd, haphazard game, after all.
That's fair. Anyone else got any final thoughts before we close this out?
James, you go. Yeah, I've got a couple of things.
Go ahead, James.
Okay. Code Veronica is a Resident Evil mainline game. It is. Stop it.
Yep.
Stop it. Behave yourself. Like, it goes back into the origins. It is, it goes a little bit too hard on the Resident Evil tropes sometimes with what we've previously discussed. Too much of a good thing, I would say. I hope it still, like Kel says, keeps those things, but just makes the pacing of them a little bit easier on the player. It should be, like Steve said, it should be played and experienced by every Resident Evil fan at least once, but please don't make it your first game because you might hate Resident Evil.
That's
but yeah, this game is the core part of the mythos of Resident Evil. From its creators to recurring characters, it kind of has it all, to be honest, but maybe too much of one thing and the other, and not enough of other things. And there's some things that the remake is going to have to change or expand on, such as Steve, Claire, and its insensitivity. But yeah, the story itself is its best feature, so I'm hoping for the best.
Kelsey, final thoughts on CV?
Just very quickly, just from a personal perspective, it's cool to get to talk about it today because in kind of the classic Resident Evil fashion, this is without a doubt a game that I've just been on a journey with for 25 years. And it's, there's not many games you can have that kind of context for and thought process with. And a remake is going to do a lot for those of us that have been along for the ride. And I am very, very excited. And this Code Veronica is a game that I've said before, I've championed as this was my Resident Evil 3. And I still think it is, but the titles of the games don't really matter. It's what they do. And I think, as I said earlier, this does so much for Resident Evil, and it's done a lot for me over the past 25 years and playing it recently. And sometimes I've been generous with my praise for it. I think with the context of the remakes, I can see in so many ways that this is, it's time. And I'm so glad they're doing it. And I really hope that in the same way we've seen in some recent years with Village and, RE7, with characters like Ethan and the Dimitrescu's and all these characters we've seen people kind of go nuts for online. I would love to, once we come out of the Code Veronica remake, see, this sounds really weird because they're evil and psychotic. I want to see the Ashfords get that kind of Stan level, thing that we've seen happen with a few characters. And, Leon and Grace have had it a lot recently. And I think we really could be, we could be in line for something like that soon. As much as I love the old game, people don't want remakes. I welcome the remake for this, and bring it on.
The Alfred Ashford fan cams are going to go really hard.
Yeah.
The only really conclusive thoughts I have about this is that I came into this podcast thinking we're all going to be very nitpicky and critical, and maybe that's how some people might interpret this podcast. I think we, highlighted, obviously, that Code Veronica is a deeply flawed game that, as we've all now said, will benefit from a remake. But overall conversation just reaffirmed me that, I really do like Code Veronica. Having this conversation recently about the best games in the series and where I rank them, and I always put CV up there, and people sort of tend to turn their nose up at me. And after this most recent playthrough, I did consider maybe it's time for us to drop a little bit lower. And that still might be true, but it's nice to have the conversation and talk about, as James said, the wonderful potential that this game still has after all these years, unfortunately mired with a couple of gameplay issues and performance issues and so on and so forth. And as I say, very much looking forward to the remake. Could be better than the original. It's entirely possible, even though I am on the side of I'd rather have spin-offs than remakes. This is certainly one that I'm immediately excited for because of that potential, and my desktop wallpapers have already been changed to those kick-ass, very red pictures of Claire Redfield, because even though I'm not the biggest Stephanie fan on her take on Claire Redfield, providing she's coming back, and I imagine that's the case, I am excited to get another Claire Redfield game finally. So. Yeah. Yes, all very much looking forward to Veronica. But nothing else remains for me but to thank the panel, our contributors, and our community. Join us on the First Aid Spray Discord server to hear the show early, and check out our merch store or our Patreon to support the show. Don't forget that these and our social media links can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. I think I'm springing this on everyone, actually, because I'm not sure we actually confirmed this, but I think our next main podcast episode is probably going to be back to the world of Resident Evil comics, specifically the chaos of the Chinese manhua, as we take a look at how Resident Evil 2 was adapted for print. Is it as weird as the infamous Code Veronica series? I guess we'll all find out together. Thank you to the panel. You can follow all the Pueblo people on Blue Sky. I'm at Cy White, Steve is at FB Steve, James is at Moist Owlets OFF, and Kelsey is at KDB-init. And finally, thank you for listening, and have a good week. That's because I watched the episode of The Simpsons last night, the one where Homer goes to space, and when they launch the rocket, there's 3, 2, 1, make rocket go now.
Is it Blue Danube? The chips?
Yes, something like that, yeah.
Your lives are literally just The Simpsons.
Always. I mean, First Aid Spray, a Simpsons fan podcast subsidiary, was at one point going to be considered a title.